Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is part 1 of our story. If you like this what if story and want to see part 2, let me know in the comments below. Before we start, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. Also, check the description for more great content and my playlist. This story was posted by 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨 on Wattpad. Now let's start. The sun hung high over Dagobah Beach, its golden rays cutting through the morning haze and casting long shadows over heaps of rusted junk and discarded refuse. The once pristine shoreline, now a graveyard of forgotten relics, shimmered under the relentless light. 𝐒𝐮𝐦𝐬𝐴 stood amidst the wreckage, his newly towering frame of 6 feet 1 inch creating an imposing silhouette against the backdrop of scattered debris. His emerald eyes, sharp with determination, surveyed the chaotic landscape. The air carried the tang of salt and decay, but to Izuku, it smelled of opportunity, a chance to forge something new from the ruins of his past. Months had passed since that fateful day when the world seemed to collapse around him. The sting of Allmight's rejection, the harsh words of his former friend 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫, and the disdainful glares of so-called heroes still lingered in his mind, but they no longer weighed him down. Instead, they fueled a fire within his chest, a searing heat that had awakened something primal, something unyielding. Izuku was quirkless, part of the 20% of humanity deemed powerless in a world dominated by quirks. Yet, as he stood under the blazing sun, he felt anything but weak. A strange, almost divine strength coursed through his veins, as if the sunlight itself was weaving power into his very being. He bent down, wrapping his calloused hands around a rusted refrigerator door half buried in the sand. With a grunt, he hoisted it free, muscles straining but steady, and tossed it onto a growing pile of cleared debris. The beach cleanup had become his training ground, a testament to his resolve. He wasn't just moving junk, he was sculpting himself into something greater, proving to the world, and to himself, that quirk or no quirk, he could rise above. The locals had started to notice the slow transformation of the beach, whispering about the tall, quiet boy who worked tirelessly under the sun. To them, he was an anomaly, a quirkless nobody defying expectations. To Izuku, he was simply taking the first steps toward his destiny. The sun climbed higher, its warmth intensifying. Izuku paused, wiping sweat from his brow, and tilted his face toward the sky. The light bathed him, and for a moment he felt invincible. Words, unbidden, rose to his lips, resonating with a confidence he barely recognized. He declared that no one had the right to deem him unworthy, for under the sun's gaze, all were equal. His voice, steady and commanding, carried over the crash of waves. He didn't know where the words came from, but they felt right, as if spoken by someone, or something, greater than himself. At Aldra Junior High, the atmosphere had shifted since Izuku's transformation. The hallways, once a gauntlet of jeers and taunts, now fell silent as he passed. His classmates, who had once mocked his quirkless status, averted their eyes, unnerved by the calm intensity in his gaze. His teachers, too, seemed at a loss, their lectures faltering when Izuku's hand rose to answer a question with a precision that left them scrambling. He wasn't just taller now. He carried himself with a quiet authority, a presence that demanded respect without ever raising his voice. 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫, however, was not so easily cowed. The explosive blonde had always thrived on demps, his powerful quirk fueling his arrogance. To see 𝐒𝐮𝐦𝐬𝐴, the quirkless nobody, tower over him with a body honed by months of relentless training was an insult he couldn't stomach. During a break between classes, 𝐒𝐵𝐺 confronted Izuku in the courtyard, his palms sparking with miniature explosions. He questioned what had changed, sneering at Izuku's newfound height and insisting that he remained a quirkless loser. Izuku turned slowly, his expression unreadable. The midday sun streamed through the school's open windows, bathing him in light. His eyes glinted, not with anger, but with something far more dangerous, certainty. He stepped closer, his shadow falling over 𝐒𝐵𝐺, who instinctively took a step back. He remarked that it was distasteful to be looked down upon by someone so small. The words hung in the air, sharp and unyielding. 𝐒𝐵𝐺's mouth opened, but no retort came. For the first time, he saw something in Izuku's gaze that made him uneasy, a calm strength waiting to be unleashed. The moment was broken by the bell, signaling the end of break. Izuku turned without another word, leaving Bakugo rooted to the spot, his fists trembling. The other students, who had gathered to watch the confrontation, dispersed quickly, whispering among themselves. Izuku's presence had become a force, a quiet storm that unsettled everyone around him. Back at Dagobah Beach, Izuku's training intensified. The piles of junk dwindled as his strength grew. He didn't just lift and carry, he strategized, analyzing the best ways to move heavy objects with minimal effort, using leverage and momentum to his advantage. His notebooks, once filled with hero analyses, now brimmed with workout regimens, nutritional plans, and tactical notes. He studied martial arts videos online, practicing katas under the moonlight when the beach was quiet. He sprinted along the shore, weaving through debris to hone his agility. Each day, he pushed his limits, driven by a pride that refused to be extinguished. His mother, Inko, watched his transformation with a mix of awe and worry. She had always supported his dreams, even when the world told him they were impossible. Now, seeing him return home with a body sculpted by hard work and a fire in his eyes that she hadn't seen before, she couldn't help but feel proud. One evening, as they sat down to a meal of grilled fish and steamed vegetables, carefully planned to fuel his training, she remarked on his change, expressing her concern. Izuku smiled, a rare, genuine smile that softened his hardened features, and reassured her that he was more than okay and was finding his own way. He kept the strange dreams that haunted his nights to himself, visions of a figure wreathed in flames, wielding a massive axe, whispering of pride and power. He also chose not to mention the heat that surged through him under the sun, as if the light itself was fueling his soul. Those were mysteries he wasn't ready to unravel, not yet. As the months passed, Dagobah Beach began to transform. The mountains of trash shrank, revealing stretches of clean sand and sparkling waves. The locals, initially skeptical, started to gather, offering words of encouragement or even lending a hand. Izuku didn't seek their praise, but he accepted it with a nod, his focus unwavering. He wasn't cleaning the beach for glory, he was proving a point, to himself, to the heroes who dismissed him, to the world that labeled him weak. One afternoon, as the sun reached its zenith, Izuku stood atop a cleared section of the beach, a rusted car frame hoisted above his head. His muscles burned, but the heat in his chest blazed brighter. He hurled the frame onto a pile, the impact echoing like a thunderclap. The small crowd of onlookers gasped, murmuring among themselves. Izuku turned to face the sun, its light enveloping him, and spoke words that seemed to come from somewhere beyond himself, declaring that to those who doubted him, his pride was unyielding, and under the sun's radiance, he was unstoppable. The crowd fell silent, awestruck by the sheer conviction in his voice. Even the seagulls overhead seemed to pause, as if the world itself was listening. Izuku didn't notice. He was already moving to the next pile of debris, his heart pounding with a rhythm that felt like destiny. At school, the dynamic had shifted irrevocably. Bakugo's taunts grew less frequent, replaced by a wary silence. The other students kept their distance, sensing the change in Izuku's demeanor. His teachers, once dismissive, began to call on him more often, impressed by his analytical mind and newfound confidence. But Izuku didn't care for their approval. He was done seeking validation from a system that judged him for something he couldn't control. One day, as he walked home under the setting sun, he passed a group of kids playing hero in an alley. One of them, a small boy with no visible quirk, was being pushed around by the others. Izuku stopped, his shadow falling over the group. The bullies froze, their bravado evaporating under his gaze. He calmly told them to leave the boy alone, asserting that strength wasn't in their quirks but in how they chose to use it. The bullies scattered, and the small boy looked up at Izuku with wide, grateful eyes, asking if he was a hero. Izuku crouched down, meeting the boy's gaze and admitting that he wasn't a hero yet, but he was working on it. As he walked away, the sun dipped below the horizon, and the heat in his chest faded to a quiet ember. But Izuku knew it would return, just as the sun would rise again. He was quirkless, yes, but he was no longer powerless. With every step, every lift, every moment under the sun, he was forging himself into something new, a hero born not of quirks, but of pride, determination, and an unyielding will to prove the world wrong. And so, under the watchful gaze of the sun, 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 continued his journey, a flame of pride burning brighter with each passing day. The sun blazed over Dagobah Beach, its light glinting off the newly restored shoreline, where waves lapped gently against clean sand. 10 months of relentless effort had transformed the junk-strewn wasteland into a place of beauty, a testament to 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫's unwavering resolve. Standing at the water's edge, his 6 feet 1 inch frame rippled with hard-earned muscle, his emerald eyes reflecting the ocean's sparkle. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of salt and freedom. Izuku's chest swelled with a quiet pride, not arrogance, but a deep, unshakable belief in his own worth. He had done this, quirkless and doubted, proving to himself that he could reshape the world one piece at a time. 2 months ago, the beach welcomed a new visitor, 𝐼𝐻𝐻𝐿, a whirlwind of pink dreadlocks and boundless enthusiasm. She had arrived with a spark in her eyes, excitedly discussing her inventions and her dream to revolutionize hero support gear. While Izuku was hauling a rusted engine block, she approached him without hesitation, declaring him the perfect test subject for her creations. Her unapologetic pride in her work resonated with him, and soon, their days were filled with shared laughter and collaboration. 𝐼𝐻𝐻𝐿 scavenged usable electronics from the beach's debris, tinkering with gadgets while Izuku trained, her inventions occasionally sparking or whirring in the background as he lifted weights and ran. The transformation was not just external. One morning, Izuku woke to find a strange tattoo etched across his back, a swirling design that pulsed faintly, like embers beneath his skin. His mother, Inko, nearly fainted, worried that he had joined a delinquent gang. She asked him, her voice trembling, if he was in trouble. He knelt before her, his voice steady as he reassured her that it was not a gang mark, but simply a part of his journey to make her proud. Though she believed him, her worry lingered. Izuku kept his dreams to himself, the figure wreathed in flames, an axe in hand, whispering of pride, and the heat that surged through him under the sun's gaze. Those secrets were his to bear. Now, he stood before the gates of 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫, the premier hero academy in Japan. The towering structure loomed, its prestige lost on Izuku. He felt no awe, only a calm determination to prove himself. Other examinees whispered as he passed, their eyes lingering on his sculpted frame, clad in a sleeveless shirt and track breeds that showcased his physique. Some shrank back, intimidated, others stared in curiosity. Izuku ignored them all, his focus unbroken, until a soft gasp caught his attention. A girl with short brown hair stumbled, her foot catching on a crack in the pavement. Without thinking, Izuku's hand shot out, steadying her before she could fall. He remarked that it was a bad omen to fall on her face. The girl's cheeks flushed pink as she stammered a thank you and hurried off, leaving Izuku to wonder if he had said something wrong. Before he could dwell on it, a familiar weight landed on his chest, 𝐼𝐻𝐻𝐿, her arms wrapping around him in an enthusiastic hug. It was nice to see 𝐼𝐻𝐻𝐿, he thought, but they needed to get going. 𝐼𝐻𝐻𝐿 grinned, clinging tighter, insisting she was comfortable. Laughing, Izuku hoisted her onto his shoulder with ease, her slight frame no burden to his strength. Together, they strode into 𝐻𝐻𝐿, chattering about her latest babies, while Izuku scanned the crowd, his expression unreadable. The written exam passed in a blur, Izuku's analytical mind making quick work of the questions. In the auditorium, present Mick's booming voice explained the practical exam: destroy robotic villains to earn points, with each examinee assigned to a battle center. Izuku was at gate A, stretching in preparation, his muscles flexing under the sunlight streaming through the windows. The other examinees stole glances, some whispering about his physique, others unnerved by the calm intensity in his eyes. He paid them no mind, his gaze settling on the brown-haired girl from earlier. She fidgeted nervously, and Izuku considered offering a word of encouragement, until a sharp voice interrupted. A tall boy with glasses, rigid with self-righteous authority, accused Izuku of trying to ruin the girl's chances by distracting her. Izuku recognized him as the one who had interrupted Present Mic earlier, pointing out a supposed error in the exam explanation. Izuku turned slowly, his eyes narrowing. The glasses-wearing boy faltered under his gaze, sweat beading on his forehead as Izuku's height and presence loomed. He asked if the boy suggested he leave, emphasizing that no one had the authority to decide someone's fate when he barely knew them. He warned the boy to watch what he said about him, or anyone else, with his arrogance, leaving the boy visibly shaken. Approaching the brown-haired girl, Izuku noticed her trembling. Before she could react, he gently grasped her waist, turning her to face him as she yelped in surprise. He acknowledged her nervousness, which was understandable, and encouraged her to take calming breaths to ease her fear. He set her down, patting her head with a faint smirk as she blushed, following his advice with slow, steady breaths. The gates to the battle center opened with a metallic groan, and Izuku sprinted forward, leaving the others frozen in shock. Present Mic's voice echoed, urging the examinees to follow him into the mock city, where Izuku moved with fluidity and precision. The exam proved to be surprisingly easy. The robotic villains, 1-pointers, 2-pointers, 3-pointers, crumbled under his fists, their metal frames unable to withstand his raw strength. Izuku fought with purpose, his strikes calculated and efficient. He muttered to himself about the lack of challenge as he smashed a 3-pointer with a single punch. The sun blazed overhead, and with each passing minute he felt a surge of power as if the light itself was invigorating him. After accumulating 69 points, he decided it was time to take a moment. Leaping onto a nearby rooftop, he surveyed the battlefield, prepared to assist anyone in need. Inside 𝐒𝐮𝐦𝐦𝐚𝐫𝐲's control room, the faculty watched the monitors with keen interest. Principal Nizu, perched on a chair, sipped tea while observing the events unfold. He remarked on the impressive group of examinees this year, contemplating how they would handle the next challenge. With a press of a button, the ground trembled, and a colossal 0-pointer robot emerged, its massive form dwarfing the mock city as it crashed through buildings. Allmight, in his weakened state, focused on the monitor displaying Izuku. The boy's strength, confidence, and sheer presence were unrecognizable compared to the tearful kid he had left on that rooftop months ago. He pondered whether Izuku had been dishonest about his abilities or if something else was at play. The thought of an unknown force sent a chill through him, but he pushed it aside, concentrating on the screen. Izuku, now at 167 points, barely flinched as the 0-pointer loomed before him. He scoffed at the overwhelming challenge, but a desperate cry halted him in his tracks. A girl with brown hair was pinned under rubble, her leg trapped. Izuku felt a surge of determination as he sprinted toward her, the sun amplifying his speed. He cleared the debris in seconds, lifting her effortlessly and carrying her to safety. Once he set her down, he turned to face the 0-pointer, a small smile forming on his lips as he prepared for the confrontation. The girl, later identified as Ochako Uraraka, watched in awe as Izuku charged the towering robot. The other examinees froze, and even the faculty leaned closer to their screens. Izuku's body thrummed with power, the heat within him rising to a peak. He crouched, the ground cracking beneath him, and launched himself skyward, leaving a crater in his wake. At the apex of his leap, he drew back his right fist, heat radiating from it as if it were forged in a furnace. With a laugh of exhilaration, he struck the 0-pointer's head, the impact sending sparks and shockwaves through the air. The robot staggered, its head caving in as explosions rippled across its frame. As Izuku descended, the wind whipped around him until a sudden force halted his fall. He hovered momentarily, disoriented, until he realized Ochako had touched him, her quirk nullifying his gravity. Once released, he landed lightly and turned to her with a raised brow, expressing gratitude for her timely intervention and inquiring about her well-being. Ochako, pale and trembling, reacted unexpectedly, but Izuku's attention shifted to his hand, still warm with that strange, fiery power. The exam concluded, and Izuku exited the battle center, maintaining a stoic expression despite the whispers and fearful glances from other examinees. A cheerful voice called out to him, and he turned to see Ochako jogging toward him, her face bright despite her earlier ordeal. She thanked him again for saving her and introduced herself, her laughter awkward yet genuine. Izuku responded with a rare warmth, pleased to meet her again. She blushed and expressed her hope that they would both pass before hurrying off. He watched her go, a faint smile lingering until a familiar weight landed on his shoulders. Mei greeted him with a grin, perched like a playful gremlin. She excitedly shared that she had aced the exam and had ideas for his hero costume, something epic. Izuku raised an eyebrow, intrigued by her enthusiasm. He mentioned he had an idea for a weapon, playfully teasing her with a nickname. Mei pouted in response, reminding him of their agreement to save nicknames for high school. Their laughter echoed as they walked through U.S. gates, the sun setting behind them, casting long shadows that danced with pride. The night sky stretched endlessly above Dagobah Beach, stars twinkling like scattered diamonds against the velvet darkness. The moon hung low, its silver light casting a serene glow over the restored shoreline, where waves whispered softly against the sand. Izuku stood at the beach, feeling the sea breeze brush against his skin. Days had passed since the U.S. entrance exam, and he returned to the beach that had become his sanctuary, a place where he had forged himself anew. The sun's warmth no longer fueled him, but the moonlight stirred a quieter, more introspective heat that pulsed faintly in his chest. Izuku's routine had intensified. His mornings began with jogs along the shore, the rhythmic thud of his feet against the sand grounding him. One-handed push-ups, now reaching 1,000 in mere minutes, were a testament to his relentless drive. He sucked hands mid-set, muscles flexing under the sun's gaze, each movement precise and powerful. The beach, once a dumping ground, now gleamed with pride, reflecting his own transformation. Between workouts, he made time for Mei Hatsum, whose infectious energy and inventive genius had become a constant in his life. They tinkered together, her salvaging circuits from forgotten appliances while he cleared debris, their banter a welcome reprieve from his solitary focus. He also helped his mother, Inko, at her small cafe, a cozy establishment that had blossomed into a local favorite. As a waiter, Izuku drew attention, his chiseled frame and quiet confidence turning heads, particularly among the female patrons. They lingered over their coffee, stealing glances at him in his crisp uniform, but he served with a polite detachment, his mind elsewhere, on his training, his dreams, and the strange power simmering within him. Now, after a grueling workout, Izuku checked the time on his phone, the screen glowing faintly in the dusk. He had enough time for a walk. Slipping on a sleeveless shirt and a pair of glasses, strange accessories that inexplicably tempered the fiery pride that surged under sunlight, he left the beach, the sand cool beneath his feet. At home, Izuku stood before his bedroom mirror, adjusting the glasses that rested on his nose. The lenses calmed him, dulling the heat that often threatened to consume his thoughts. He shed his shirt, revealing the lion tattoo etched across his back, its lines bold and intricate, pulsing faintly as if alive. The mark had appeared months ago, a mystery tied to the dreams of a flame-wreathed figure and a voice that spoke of pride. He traced the tattoo's edges, pondering its significance and the identity of the voice that haunted him. A knock interrupted his thoughts. Inko peeked in, her eyes wide with excitement. She held out an envelope stamped with U.S. insignia, her hands trembling. Izuku took it gently, offering a reassuring smile and asking for a moment alone. Inko nodded, retreating but pacing anxiously outside his door, her footsteps a soft rhythm in the quiet house. Izuku sat at his desk, the envelope heavy in his hands. He sighed, bracing himself. Tearing it open, he found a letter and a small device that clattered onto his desk. A hologram flickered to life, and Allmight's booming voice filled the room. He announced that Izuku had earned 167 villain points, making him the representative of the first-year students. He also gained 60 hero points for saving an examinee, totaling 227 points, surpassing even Allmight and the number 2 hero. The device shattered under Izuku's fist, his glasses slipping off as he stood. His height seemed to swell, his eyes blazing with intensity. Anger coursed through him, a molten heat that drowned out Allmight's words. He felt no sympathy nor pride for someone who had dismissed him as unworthy, igniting a fury he hadn't felt since that rooftop rejection. He replaced his glasses, the heat subsiding as his composure returned. Opening his door, he found 𝐾𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 waiting, her eyes brimming with worry and hope. His expression softened, and he pulled her into a gentle hug. He reassured her that he had passed, his voice warm. 𝐾𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫's tears soaked his shirt as she clung to him, and Izuku laughed, a rare sound that eased her fears. He promised her he was okay. Later that night, Izuku stood on Dagobah Beach, the moonlight bathing him in silver. The stars glittered above, and the ocean's murmur was a soothing counterpoint to the heat still lingering in his chest. He gazed at the sky, lost in thought, when a familiar voice broke the silence. May approached, her pink dreadlocks swaying in the breeze. She wore a loose tank top and shorts, her usual tool belt absent, giving her a softer, more relaxed look. He teased her about the beach leading him to her, and she laughed, closing the distance between them. She grabbed his hand, her fingers warm against his, and remarked on how long it had been since she saw him transform the beach, playfully accusing him of stealing parts for her inventions. Izuku shot back with a grin, recalling the moment. It had stung, he admitted, but the laughter they shared mingled with the sound of the waves. He turned to May, his gaze softening as he pulled her closer, feeling her warmth against him. He acknowledged that his pride made him bolder. May's eyes sparkled with mischief as she leaned in, suggesting that perhaps she liked his boldness. Their faces drew near, and they shared a tentative kiss that quickly deepened. In that moment, the world around them faded, the stars, the sea, and the weight of 𝐾𝐮𝐿 letter disappeared, leaving just the two of them, lost in each other. Izuku lifted her effortlessly, and May wrapped her legs around him, her fingers tangling in his hair as their kiss grew more passionate. He sank onto the sand, cradling her against him, the cool grains contrasting with the warmth of their embrace. As they parted, both gasped for air, their eyes locked in a moment of shared wonder. May whispered that it was something special, her voice husky with emotion. Izuku smiled, brushing a stray dreadlock from her face, expressing his happiness to share this moment with her. May leaned in, planting soft kisses along his neck, sending shivers through him as she murmured her gratitude for their time together. They remained wrapped in each other's arms, the moonlight casting their shadows on the sand. Izuku's gaze drifted to the sky, feeling a quiet strength stir within him, as if the moon itself was igniting a new resolve. He softly remarked that this was nice, barely above the sound of the waves. May agreed, nestling closer to him. As the night stretched on, a sense of certainty settled over Izuku. 𝐾𝐮𝐿 awaited him with its challenges and skeptics, but under the gentle light of the moon he felt more than just quirkless. He was Izuku Midoriya, forged in pride and ready to carve his own path, regardless of the world's opinions. The morning sun cast golden rays across Mizudafu, warming the streets as Izuku stepped out of his apartment in 𝐾𝐮𝐻's crisp uniform. The navy blazer hugged his shoulders, the tie neatly knotted, and his glasses lent him an air of calm restraint. Standing tall at 6 feet 1 inch, he drew glances from passers-by, but his thoughts were focused on the day ahead. As he adjusted his bag, his mother's voice rang out, bright with pride. She launched herself into a fierce hug, her small frame barely reaching his chest, expressing her pride and wishing him an amazing day at school. Izuku smiled gently, his emerald eyes softening as he returned the embrace, careful not to overwhelm her with his strength. After stepping back, he waved goodbye as he headed out. The door clicked shut behind him, and he paused on the sidewalk, feeling the sun's rays intensify against his skin. He removed his glasses, feeling a familiar heat surge through his veins. His muscles swelled slightly, straining against the fabric of his uniform. With a smirk, he draped his blazer over his shoulder, murmuring to himself that things might get interesting today. In a single, fluid motion, he leaped onto a nearby building and sprinted across the rooftops, the city blurring beneath him as he moved with effortless grace. 𝐾𝐮 loomed ahead, its glass towers glinting like a beacon of ambition. The campus buzzed with nervous energy as first-year students wove through the courtyard, their voices a mix of excitement and anxiety. Izuku descended from his rooftop run, landing lightly and slipping his glasses back on. The school's grandeur meant little to him. It was merely a stage to prove himself, a place to defy the world's low expectations. He navigated the halls, searching for Class 1A, his expression one of mild irritation as he muttered to himself about the difficulty of finding a single classroom. When he finally spotted the oversized door of Class 1A, he pushed it open, only to be met with a cacophony of voices. A tall boy with glasses gestured animatedly, scolding another with spiky blonde hair for propping his feet on the desk, calling it disrespectful to their classmates. The blonde sneered, sparks crackling from his palms, dismissing the admonition. The bespectacled boy introduced himself as 𝐀𝐮𝐬𝐬𝐬, asserting that such an attitude was not fitting for someone who wished to be a hero. As Izuku stepped inside, the room fell silent, all eyes turning to him. Ida's eyes widened in recognition, and he approached, only to falter under Izuku's piercing gaze. Izuku coolly acknowledged that he already knew Ida's name, indicating that introductions were unnecessary. Ida squared his shoulders, undeterred. He commended Midoriya for discerning the true nature of the entrance exam's hero points. He had misjudged him and offered an apology, acknowledging that Midoriya was the superior candidate. Izuku sighed, a flicker of annoyance crossing his face. He slipped off his glasses, and the air seemed to thicken, his aura intensifying. He addressed Ida, his voice low and deliberate, reminding him that his disrespect during the exam wasn't forgotten. They were classmates now, nothing more. The words carried a quiet menace, and Ida nodded stiffly, stepping back as if singed by an unseen flame. A softer voice broke the tension. Ochako Uraraka approached, her round face beaming as she craned her neck to meet his gaze. She expressed her happiness that he was in her class. Izuku's expression softened, a rare smile tugging at his lips. He acknowledged her, saying it would be dull without a familiar face. He reached out, patting her head gently, his large hand dwarfing hers. She blushed, giggling nervously. She asked him to stop petting her, though her smile betrayed her amusement. Izuku chuckled, withdrawing his hand. He noted that she seemed to enjoy it but agreed to stop, for now. Ochako's blush deepened, and she playfully swatted his arm, prompting a laugh from him. Across the room, Katsuki Bakugo seethed, his crimson eyes locked on Izuku. Memories of their last confrontation burned in his mind, Izuku's towering figure, his calm defiance. He silently vowed to crush him, feeling sparks flicker in his fists. Ochako's voice pulled Izuku's attention back. She wondered what the day would be like, ceremony stuff, guidance counseling, and what their teacher would be like. She admitted to feeling nervous. Before Izuku could respond, a raspy voice cut through the chatter. A figure emerged from a yellow sleeping bag on the floor, his haggard face framed by dark, unkempt hair. He took a long sip from a juice pouch, scanning the room. He introduced himself as Shoda Aizawa, their homeroom teacher, and instructed them to call him Aizawa-sensei. He noted it took them too long to quiet down and emphasized the need for sharper instincts. The class gaped, stunned by their disheveled teacher. Aizawa produced a stack of gym uniforms, tossing them onto a desk, and ordered them to put them on and head to the grounds immediately. As the students filed out, Izuku lingered, eyeing the uniform's tight-fitting jacket with disdain. He muttered that it would restrict his movements, slipping it on reluctantly. The fabric strained against his shoulders. A cheerful voice interrupted his thoughts. A red-haired boy with sharp teeth and a wide grin approached, introducing himself as Eijiro Kirishima. He complimented Izuku's physique and mentioned hearing about how he had smashed the zero-pointer effortlessly, calling it manly. Izuku raised a brow, amused by the enthusiasm. He remarked that he had something unique about him. He closed his locker, feeling the jacket already constrictive. Kirishima's excitement was infectious, but Izuku's mind was elsewhere, focused on Aizawa. The sun blazed over the high's peak grounds, igniting the air with fierce intensity that mirrored the tension among Class 1A. The students stood in a loose semicircle, their faces a mix of anticipation and unease, as Shoda Aizawa announced a quirk assessment test, with expulsion awaiting whoever ranked last. The declaration hung heavy, sharpening the competitive edge in the air. The test began, each event a crucible to forge or break the aspiring heroes. The 50-meter dash came first, a blur of motion as students showcased their quirks. Some thrived, their abilities propelling them across the line in seconds. Others faltered, their powers ill-suited for speed. 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 stood calmly, his navy tracksuit stretched taut over his muscular frame. 𝐾𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫, his crimson eyes burning with rivalry, lined up beside him, smirking as he leaned in to taunt him. Izuku's gaze didn't waver, his expression one of serene indifference. He didn't respond, his silence infuriating Bakugo further. The whistle blew, and Izuku moved, a green blur that left only the echo of his footsteps. The machine beeped, its robotic voice announcing his time, 2:34 seconds. Bakugo froze, his own time of 4:13 seconds flashing on the display. His mind reeled, unable to comprehend how this quirkless boy had outrun him. His fists sparked with frustration, but Izuku merely sighed, his face showing mild disappointment at his own performance. The class whispered, their eyes darting between the two, sensing a rivalry that crackled like a live wire. The tests continued, grip strength, standing long jump, side-to-side steps, and Izuku excelled in each with effortless precision. He held back, careful not to unleash the full force of the mysterious power that surged under the sun's gaze, yet his results still drew gasps. His grip crushed the dynamometer, his jumps cleared incredible distances, and his agility left his classmates scrambling to keep up. Bakugo's scowl deepened with every event, his explosions barely keeping pace. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Eijiro Kirishima observed, his red hair glinting as he scratched his chin, wondering what was behind Midoriya's impressive performance. Another student, a boy with spiky black hair, noted that Izuku had taken down a 0-pointer in the entrance exam, suggesting he must possess a remarkable quirk. Bakugo scoffed, dismissing the idea that Izuku could be anything special. A girl with earphone jacks on her ears gestured toward Izuku, who was casually stretching, his muscles straining against his uniform, insisting that what they had seen was no act. The final event arrived, the softball throw. Ochako Uraraka stepped up first, her quirk sending the ball soaring into the sky, earning an infinity symbol on the scoreboard. The class cheered, but Izuku, standing in the circle next, remained unfazed. He gripped the softball, its weight feeling negligible in his calloused hand. Voices buzzed around him, speculating on whether he could surpass Ochako's impressive throw. Izuku's fingers tightened around the ball. He considered removing his glasses, letting the sun's power flow through him, but paused, deciding it was unnecessary. With a fluid motion, he wound up, his muscles flexing as he threw the ball high into the air, a mere speck against the azure sky. The machine beeped, announcing a distance of 799.5 meters. A murmur of awe swept through the class. Izuku nodded, satisfied, and turned to leave the circle, until Aizawa's voice stopped him cold, questioning if that was truly all he had to offer and what his purpose was there. The class froze, eyes darting between student and teacher. Aizawa's gaze was piercing, his capture scarf floating as his hair rose. The air crackled with tension. Izuku tilted his head, his expression unreadable, asking if there was a reason for being singled out. Aizawa stepped forward, his scarf lashing out to grab Izuku's arm. He pulled, but Izuku remained rooted, unyielding. The teacher's eyes narrowed, but Izuku merely sighed, a sound heavy with disdain. He reached up, removing his glasses and tossing them toward Ochako, who caught them instinctively, the lenses landing atop her head. The change was immediate. Steam rose from Izuku's body, his height swelling to an imposing 6 feet 3 inches. His muscles bulged, tearing the jacket of his P uniform, revealing a fierce, glowing lion tattoo emblazoned across his back. His voice deepened, resonating with an authority that silenced the field. He questioned Aizawa's assumptions about his strength, challenging the notion that he was weak for holding back. He took a step forward, the ground trembling faintly beneath him. His eyes, now blazing with an inner fire, locked onto Aizawa, who seemed to shrink under their weight. The class gaped, the girls blushing at the sight of Izuku's chiseled physique, while the boys whispered about the sheer power radiating from him. The lion tattoo gleamed, its presence almost otherworldly. Aizawa released his scarf, his quirk deactivating as his hair fell. Izuku's lips curved into a faint, knowing smile, acknowledging Aizawa's recognition of his strength. He turned, striding toward his classmates, the heat from his body palpable even from a distance, as if the sun itself had descended to walk among them. Reaching Ochako, who craned her neck to meet his gaze, her face of vivid scarlet, Izuku chuckled softly, thanking her for keeping his glasses safe. He retrieved the lenses, placing them back on his nose, his height shrinking slightly but his presence no less commanding. He patted her head, earning a shy smile, and addressed the class with calm authority, urging them not to falter and to fight to stay where they were. With that, he walked off to change, leaving a stunned silence in his wake. Aizawa's heart raced, a rare flicker of unease crossing his face. Across the field, All Might, hidden in his weakened form, watched with wide eyes, grappling with what he had just witnessed. That power was unlike any quirk he had seen before. What was he? Bakugo stood rooted, his fists clenched so tightly that his knuckles turned white. Fear, not anger, gripped him. He had a quirk this whole time. That look, he was staring right at him. The memory of Izuku's words echoed in his mind, someone would always surpass him, and that someone was Izuku. For the first time, Bakugo felt the weight of doubt, a crack in his unshakable confidence. Later, Izuku donned his school uniform, the blazer now tailored to fit his frame, and made his way to the support department. The halls of 𝐬 buzzed with the day's events, but his mind was elsewhere, focused on the next step of his journey. He pushed open the door to the support department, greeted by a cacophony of whirring machines and the faint scent of scorched metal. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴𝐵's laughter rang out, punctuated by a small explosion from a workbench. Izuku called out to her, a grin tugging at his lips, asking what chaos she was brewing now. 𝐒𝐿 spun around, her pink dreadlocks bouncing, a wrench in one hand and a half-built gadget in the other. She exclaimed that he was just in time and that she was working on something epic for his weapon. Izuku crossed his arms, leaning against the doorway, expressing that he had ideas of his own and wanted to create something that screamed pride. 𝐒𝐿's eyes sparkled with mischief as she replied that they were going to make waves. The room hummed with their shared ambition, the promise of creation and defiance, as Izuku stood ready to forge his path, a lion unbowed under the sun's unrelenting gaze. The halls of 𝐬 high buzzed with the rhythm of a typical high school, yet the undercurrent of ambition set it apart. The morning unfolded with an almost mundane cadence, mathematics taught by ectoplasm's precise clones, English delivered with present mix booming flair, and classical Japanese guided by midnight's sharp wit. For Class 1A, these lessons were a grounding contrast to their heroics training, a reminder that even future heroes needed to master the basics. Reactions varied as the lunch bell chimed. Mina Ashido slumped dramatically, her pink skin glistening with exhaustion, while Denki Kaminari and 𝐻𝐿𝐴 exchanged weary groans. Toru Hagikure's invisible form sagged, her uniform betraying her fatigue. Meanwhile, Momo Yaoyorozu, Tenya Ida, Katsuki Bakugo, and Izuku Midoriya emerged unfazed, their focus unshaken by the academic rigor. While most of Class 1A flocked to the cafeteria, Izuku slipped away, his school uniform crisp but his glasses lending a calm restraint to his towering presence. He entered a classroom in the support department, where the air hummed with the clatter of tools and the faint scent of scorched metal. 𝐒𝐿, her pink dreadlocks swaying as she hunched over a workbench, was a whirlwind of focus, her hands deftly assembling a device she had dreamed of crafting 10 months ago. Sparks flew from her latest prototype, brimming with potential. Izuku leaned against the doorway, his glasses softening the intensity of his emerald gaze. A smile tugged at his lips as he watched 𝐒𝐿, her confidence and drive mirroring his own. He wondered, not for the first time, if their paths would have crossed without the mysterious power that had reshaped him. Would they share this bond, this spark, if he hadn't become the lion he was now? 𝐒𝐿 noticed him staring and teased him about it, asking what was on his mind. Izuku smiled wider, expressing that he was admiring the person he cared about, who was pouring her heart into her creations. 𝐒𝐿 snorted, still tinkering, and told him that flattery wouldn't speed things up. But Izuku crossed the room, his footsteps silent, and wrapped his arms around her waist. Mei froze, her tools clattering softly as she tilted her head to meet his gaze, his warmth enveloping her. His voice softened, sincere as he told her that she was incredible and he would never forgive himself if she got hurt because of him. His words carried a weight, a vow born of the pride that burned within him. Mei's golden eyes softened, a rare blush dusting her cheeks. She leaned into him, the heat from his body a comforting cocoon, and murmured that she cared about him too. But she pulled back, her grin returning as she gestured to her workbench, insisting that she needed to finish her project and that there should be no more distractions. Izuku chuckled, then gently turned her face to his, capturing her lips in a kiss that sparked like one of her inventions. Mei melted into it, her hands gripping his shirt as the kiss deepened, heat blooming between them. She pressed closer, but just as the moment threatened to consume them, Izuku pulled back, a smirk dancing on his lips. Mei's face was a vivid scarlet, her eyes wide with flustered surprise. He teased her about the no distractions rule, reminding her that he had class and that he would catch her later. As he left, his laughter echoed, leaving Mei staring after him, her mind racing with thoughts far less mechanical than her projects. Lunch ended, and Class 1A reconvened in their classroom, anticipation crackling like static. The students buzzed with speculation about their heroics lesson. Eiichiro Kirishima wondered aloud what Aizawa-sensei had planned, his red hair catching the light. 𝐶𝐮𝐬𝐴 shrugged, slinging an arm over his chair, mentioning that teachers could teach however they wanted, so it could be anything. Momo Yaoyorozu mused about who their instructor would be, noting that they hadn't specified. Izuku, seated at his desk, was engrossed in a notebook, his pen moving with deliberate precision. The pages, once filled with hero analyses, now held theories about his power, the heat that surged under sunlight and the possibility of harnessing it at night. He scribbled about amplifying it under the moon, determined to keep his findings from Mei until he was certain. The door slammed open, and All Might strode in, his Silver Age costume gleaming, his grin a beacon of charisma. He announced his arrival with enthusiasm, and the class erupted in excitement. Kirishima hooped, Kaminari's jaw dropped, and 𝐶𝐮𝐴 tilted her head, noting the costume's vintage flair. Bakugo narrowed his eyes, while Izuku tightened his grip on his pen, his thoughts turning sour. All Might's presence filled the room as he strode to the front, welcoming the students and declaring that he would teach them the true essence of heroism. Today's lesson would be battle training. Bakugo's lips curled into a grin at the mention of battle, while Izuku's eyes flickered with interest at the prospect of training. All Might pressed a button, and the wall slid open, revealing cases labeled with seat numbers. He informed the class that every hero needed a proper wardrobe and that these contained their custom costumes. The students surged forward, eager to grab their cases. Izuku lingered, stretching his arms as he rose with his case in hand. He checked his phone, chuckling at Mei's latest message, a chaotic mix of schematics and playful emojis. Stepping outside, he paused to gaze at the sky, noting the sun's power waning. He removed his glasses, feeling a faint pulse of heat, and murmured to himself about the missed opportunity to showcase true strength. With a confident stride, he headed to the changing rooms, ready to face whatever challenge awaited. The training grounds of 𝐸, high pulsed with anticipation, the air thick with the scent of sweat and metal as Class 1A stood clad in their hero costumes, each design a bold declaration of their ambitions. The sun blazed overhead, casting stark shadows across the mock cityscape. Izuku Midoriya emerged last from the tunnel, his presence a quiet storm. His costume was a masterpiece of Mei Hatsume's craftsmanship. A sleeveless black top hugged his frame, golden lines tracing from the shoulders to the center, converging at a lion emblem emblazoned on his right arm. Another lion gleamed as his belt buckle, anchoring dark green combat breaths tucked into black boots with gleaming metal soles. Without his glasses, his emerald eyes burned with fierce confidence, his stature radiating an almost palpable aura of power. The class stared awestruck. Ochako Uraraka's cheeks flushed, Eiichiro Kirishima's grin widened, and even Katsuki Bakugo's scowl faltered for a moment. Izuku apologized for keeping them waiting, his voice steady, a grin flashing across his face, acknowledging that he was the last to arrive. All Might cleared his throat, drawing attention back to the task at hand. He explained that today's lesson was battle training, featuring 2-on-2 indoor battles, with heroes versus villains. Heroes had 10 minutes to capture both villains or secure the bomb, while villains had to defend the bomb, defeat the heroes, or outlast the clock. He reached for a box to draw teams, but Izuku's voice cut through the air, declaring his intention to go alone, stating that he didn't need anyone getting in his way. All Might hesitated, meeting Izuku's gaze. The raw determination in that look chilled the #1 hero. Memories of their rooftop encounter flashed in his mind, and he nodded, conceding to Izuku's request. Whispers rippled through the class, uncertainty, curiosity, doubt, but Izuku stood unfazed, his focus razor-sharp. The matchups were announced. Izuku Midoriya Team A, Hero vs Katsuki Bakugo and Tenya Ida Team D, Villains, Shoto Todoroki and Mizo Shoji Team B vs Masahiro Ojiro and Toru Hagakure Team I, Fumikage Tokoyami and Tsuyu Azui Team H vs Eijiro Kirishima, Minoru Mineta and Hanta Siro Team J, Denki Kaminari and Kyokajiro Team G vs Momo Yaoyorozu and Ochako Uraraka Team C, Yuga Oyama and Mina Ashido Team E vs Rikido Sato and Koji Koda Team F. Izuku faced the towering mock building where Bakugo and Ida waited. The rest of the class followed All Might to the observation room, monitors flickering to life as they settled in to watch. Izuku stood motionless, his posture relaxed but his mind racing. He anticipated Bakugo's direct approach, knowing his pride demanded it, while Ida would likely stay with the bomb, playing defense. The plan was simple: neutralize Bakugo quickly, then hunt down Ida. Begin. All Might's voice resonated through the speakers. Izuku moved with deliberate calm, ducking under the low doorway into the building. He bypassed the first floor, too obvious for the bomb, and ascended to the second, his boots echoing faintly. The corridors were dim, lined with concrete and steel, a labyrinth designed to test strategy. Halfway through the second floor, a corner erupted in a blinding flash of light and heat. Bakugo rounded it, his gauntlets sparking, a manic grin splitting his face. He unleashed a massive explosion that engulfed the hallway in fire and smoke. The blast shook the walls, but when the haze cleared, Izuku stood untouched, his costume singed but his body unscathed. He tilted his head, a faint frown creasing his brow. He questioned whether that was supposed to hurt, his voice calm but carrying a weight that made Bakugo's eyes widen. Bakugo, furious, launched another explosion, bigger this time, the force rattling the building's frame. Izuku didn't flinch, standing firm as the flames washed over him, leaving only faint scorch marks on his breaths. Bakugo charged for a third attack, his right gauntlet glowing, but Izuku moved with blinding speed. He seized Bakugo's wrist and redirected the blast upward, shattering the ceiling in a shower of debris. Before Bakugo could react, Izuku hoisted him off the ground by his wrist, his strength effortless. He remarked on Bakugo's predictability, his voice low and laced with disdain. With his free hand, he delivered a powerful uppercut to Bakugo's solar plexus. The impact was thunderous, the air itself seeming to crack. Bakugo lurched forward, gasping for breath. Izuku didn't pause, releasing his wrist only to land a straight cross to Bakugo's jaw, sending him hurtling down the hallway. Bakugo crashed into the wall, the concrete splintering under the force. He struggled to his knees, gasping, his vision swimming. Blood trickled from his lip, and his pride burned hotter than his explosions. Izuku stalked forward, his boots clicking against the floor, each step deliberate. He asked Bakugo how it felt to be weaker than someone else, to experience that helplessness and despair, the same feelings he endured every day Bakugo mocked him. He questioned how it felt to be on the receiving end. Bakugo staggered to his feet, breathing, his crimson eyes blazing with defiance. He declared that he didn't care about Izuku's power, insisting he was still better. He craned his neck to meet Izuku's gaze, his bravado faltering under the weight of that unyielding stare. Izuku's lips curled into a cold smile as he reminded Bakugo that he always said heroes win. He posed the question of what would happen if he defeated Bakugo today. Would that make Bakugo the Deku now? Bakugo's gauntlet flashed, the grenade chamber glowing ominously. His laughter was hysterical, edged with desperation as he declared his intent to unleash an explosion bigger than anything he had ever done. He aimed the gauntlet, his finger hovering over the pin. All Might's voice crackled through the comms, urgent and warning. He urged Bakugo to stop, explaining that it could seriously injure Izuku. Bakugo snapped back, insisting that Izuku wouldn't die if he dodged. He yanked the pin, and the hallway erupted in a cataclysmic blast, a torrent of fire and force that shook the building to its foundations. Windows shattered, walls buckled, and smoke filled the air. Bakugo breathed, his laughter echoing as the dust settled, asking how Izuku liked that. The smoke parted with a single sweep of Izuku's arm, revealing him standing tall, his costume tattered but his body unmarked. He questioned if that was truly Bakugo's best, his voice laced with mockery and confidence. He decided to humor Bakugo with one of his own ranged attacks, warning that Bakugo wouldn't withstand it. Izuku raised his hand, fingers splayed, and the air around him shimmered with heat. A sphere of light formed, pulsating like a miniature sun. He named his attack and moved his hand forward, the orb rocketing toward Bakugo, who stood frozen, his bravado crumbling. The impact was devastating, floors, walls, and ceilings disintegrated in a blinding flash, the shockwave reverberating through the training ground. Bakugo was hurled backward, his body slamming into a collapsed wall, unconscious before he hit the ground. The observation room fell silent, the class gaping at the monitors. Ochako covered her mouth in shock, Kirishima's eyes widened, and even All Might's smile faltered, his mind racing at the display of power. 2-minute warning. All Might's voice broke the silence, strained with shock. Izuku didn't hesitate. He sprinted up the stairwell, covering the 3rd floor in seconds, his senses sharp. The 4th floor opened into a vast chamber, where 𝐻𝐼𝐸 stood before the bomb, his engines revving. He welcomed Izuku, steady but wary, declaring that he only needed to hold him off for a minute for victory to be theirs. Izuku's gaze was unwavering as he moved forward with slow, deliberate steps. He was determined to bring the conflict to an end. Ida prepared himself, engines flaring in anticipation. Just as Ida began to question Izuku's intentions, Izuku surged ahead, a blur of speed that seemed almost impossible. The air around him crackled with energy as he brushed against the bomb, triggering the win condition. All Might's voice resonated, declaring that the heroes had triumphed. Ida stood frozen, disbelief evident on his face. Izuku turned to him, his expression softening. He expressed his regret, explaining that fighting Ida would have been futile, he only needed to pass him. His tone was filled with quiet pride and sincerity as he adjusted his glasses and extended a hand, signaling no hard feelings. Ida removed his helmet, his initial shock transforming into respect. He accepted Izuku's handshake, acknowledging his formidable skills. A grin spread across both their faces, a mutual recognition of each other's strengths. As they exited the building, their classmates watched Izuku with a mix of awe and apprehension. Bakugo, now conscious but visibly worn, was being assisted by recovery drones, his pride visibly diminished. In the observation room, All Might pondered the events that had unfolded, questioning whether what he witnessed was truly a quirk. Unaware of the attention on him, Izuku made his way toward the support department, his thoughts focused on Mei and their collaborative project. The sun began to set, but the warmth in his chest remained, a promise of future challenges. He was no longer the boy without a quirk. He had transformed into a lion, ready to make his mark at you. The sun's rays illuminated Dagobah Beach, its sands as white as fresh snow, each grain sparkling as the gentle waves lapped at the shore. Izuku Midoriya ran along the coastline, his boots sinking slightly with each powerful stride, the rhythm of his steps creating a steady beat against the morning's tranquility. His glasses reflected the sunlight, glinting as he moved, while his shirtless torso absorbed the warmth, fueling his inner fire. The beach, once a desolate area he had revitalized, now served as a sanctuary, a place for him to clear his mind after the tumultuous early days at 𝐻𝐸. His thoughts turned to All Might, the so-called symbol of peace, whose hollow praise after the battle training had grated against Izuku's pride. The hero's attempt to question him later had been met with a fierce glare, silencing him. As he jogged, Izuku sighed, looking toward the horizon where the sun climbed higher, intensifying the warmth in his chest. He mused about Mei's progress on the weapon and what gift he might give her, perhaps flowers or something unique that reflected her personality. He chuckled at the thought of becoming a romantic figure, but the sight of the time on his phone reminded him of his mother's special dinner that evening, a rare homemade treat. With renewed energy, he sprinted away from the beach, eager to see what 𝐾𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 had prepared. The following day, Izuku sat on a bus, his head resting against the window, eyes closed as the engine's hum lulled him into contemplation. Class 1A was on their way to the unforeseen simulation joint USJ for rescue training, an off-campus exercise designed to sharpen their skills. His mind replayed the events of the previous days, each moment a step in his growth. After his decisive victory over Katsuki Bakugo and Tenya Ida during the battle training, Izuku returned to the observation room alongside Ida. All Might's professional praise felt empty, and Izuku sidestepped him, his disdain barely hidden. When asked who the MVP was, Momo Yaoyorozu raised her hand, providing a sharp analysis that highlighted Ida's teamwork and dedication to protecting the bomb. She noted that Bakugo had abandoned his post, and while Izuku had won, he could have bypassed the fight with his speed. Ida beamed with gratitude, and Izuku offered him a genuine smile, acknowledging Momo's assessment. The rest of the battles unfolded, some one-sided, others fiercely contested. Shoto Todoroki's ice powers left a lasting impression on Izuku, who admired the boy's quiet intensity. The day concluded with All Might hastily exiting the room as his time limit expired, prompting a chuckle from Izuku. The next day, Aizawa announced the election for class president and vice president. Izuku emerged victorious with 5 votes, Momo received 3, and Ida garnered 2, making Izuku the president and Momo the vice president. During lunch, Izuku confided in Ida about his vote for him, surprising both Ida and Ochako, who sat nearby. He explained that strength alone does not define a leader, prompting Ida to respond with heartfelt sincerity, acknowledging Izuku's leadership qualities. This exchange drew laughter from Izuku, solidifying their camaraderie. Then chaos erupted. An alarm blared, signaling a breach by the media. The cafeteria descended into panic, students rushing toward the exits. Izuku and Ida exchanged a glance, a silent agreement forming between them. Izuku handed his glasses to Ida and stepped forward, removing them. His body swelled, steam rising as heat filled the room, an oppressive pressure halting the crowd. His footsteps echoed like thunder, each one radiating power. The students turned, fear flickering in their eyes as they faced Izuku, his 6 feet 3 inches frame towering, his gaze burning with authority. He demanded to know if this was you, or a preschool, his voice a deep rumble that silenced the chaos. He questioned how they could show so little pride as students of this prestigious school, urging them to find their dignity and drive to rise above who they were. He encouraged them to be proud, to be bold, and to make something of themselves, insisting they stop acting like children and return to the cafeteria in an orderly manner. His words cut through the panic. Strangers complied, awed by his presence, while his classmates nodded in respect. Back in the classroom, Izuku proposed a re-vote, wondering if his display had swayed opinions. Instead, his votes surged, nearly the entire class backing him. He sighed, folding his arms, acknowledging their pride in making the right choice. As their president, he expressed his gratitude, and applause followed. He flashed Ochako a smile that left her blushing, her heart fluttering as he took his seat, glasses back on. The bus jolted, pulling Izuku from his thoughts. A voice called to him. It was 𝐶𝐮𝐬𝐴, her calm demeanor curious. She introduced herself bluntly, noting that his quirk resembled a mix of strength and heat, similar to All Might or Endeavor. The bus fell silent, all eyes on Izuku, especially Bakugo's, burning with suspicion. Izuku's frown flickered, his pride bristling even through his glasses, but he forced a small smile. He encouraged everyone to call him Izuku, just as he had allowed Tsuyu to call her by her nickname. He explained that his quirk was not like All Might's or Endeavor's, but rather a blend of his parents' abilities, his father's fire breath and his mother's attraction of small objects. He called it sunshine, which stockpiled solar energy, amplifying his physical abilities and allowing him to wield heat-based attacks. He compared it to 𝐻𝐵g's ability to store fat and unleash it, emphasizing that while their outputs might seem similar, his was unique. His lie was seamless, though it churned his stomach. The class relaxed, satisfied, and 𝐮𝐬𝐴 announced their arrival. They stepped off the bus, facing a massive dome structure, the 𝐒𝐮𝐦𝐦𝐚𝐫𝐲. Inside, diverse climates sprawled. A flood zone, landslide area, a burning cityscape. 𝐮𝐬𝐴 welcomed them to the unforeseen simulation joint, his voice flat. 13, the spacesuited hero, greeted them, explaining the exercise. Rescue training to MST are their quirks in crisis scenarios. She signaled 𝐮𝐬𝐴, a subtle gesture about All Might's absence that only Izuku caught. He shrugged it off as 13 spoke about the dual nature of quirks, dangerous yet capable of good in the right hands. A black mist swirled at the plaza below, catching Izuku's eye. He alerted 𝐮𝐬𝐴 to a problem, his voice low. The class gasped as dozens of villains emerged from the mist, led by 3 figures: a misty humanoid named 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫, a hulking bird-like creature, and a pale, hand-covered figure radiating menace. 𝐮𝐬𝐴 ordered 13 to evacuate the students as he leaped down the stairs, his capture scarf unfurling. Izuku's mind raced, realizing that 𝐮𝐬𝐴 was not a frontline fighter. He stayed put as his classmates retreated, his instincts screaming to act. 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 appeared before them, introducing himself as a member of the League of Villains and stating their mission to eliminate All Might. He dismissed the students as inconsequential. Bakugo and Kirishima lunged, their attacks fierce but futile as 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 dodged, warping them through portals. Others followed, scattered across the USJ's zones. Izuku stood still, his gaze locked on 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫, deeming the villain no threat. As president, his duty was to his classmates. He let the portal engulf him, ready to protect those who needed him, the heat of his pride burning brighter than ever. The portal's dark maw expelled Izuku Midoriya into the air above the flood zone of the unforeseen simulation joint USJ, a vast expanse of water shimmering under the dome's artificial light. He plummeted toward the surface, his glasses glinting as the sun's filtered rays fueled the heat in his chest. No panic stirred within him. He knew his body could withstand the impact. With a resounding splash, he plunged into the depths, the cold water a fleeting shock against his skin. He surfaced quickly, shaking droplets from his hair, and scanned his surroundings. Shadows moved beneath the waves, villains, their forms adapted for aquatic combat, circling like predators. A shark-like villain surged forward, fins slicing through the water. Izuku's calm held firm. Panic was not an option. As the villain closed in, jaws snapping, Izuku summoned the power within, his muscles swelling, his height inching upward as steam curled from his skin. With a single, precise strike, he slammed his fist into the sharkman's snout, the force reverberating through the water. The villain rocketed backward, carving a path through the waves, crashing dozens of meters away, dazed and drifting. Before Izuku could seize the moment, a green blur darted through the water, swiftly taking down 2 more villains with fluid strikes. 𝐶𝐮𝐦𝐦𝐚𝐫𝐲 emerged, her frog-like form cutting through the current. Her tongue lashed out, wrapping around Izuku's waist. He cancelled his power surge, shrinking slightly to avoid burning her with his heat, making himself lighter for her to handle. With a powerful flick, she launched him skyward. He soared, spotting a stranded ship in the flood zone center, and landed with a thud that rocked the deck. Moments later, another impact echoed, Minoru Mineta, groaning as he hit the deck, followed by Tsuyu, who climbed aboard with agile grace. Izuku met Tsuyu's gaze, his glasses back on, tempering his pride. He expressed gratitude for her assistance, acknowledging that water was not his strongest domain. Tsuyu scanned the water where villains regrouped, their forms bobbing menacingly, and pointed out that they were outnumbered, emphasizing the need for a plan. Before Izuku could respond, Mineta's wails filled the air, expressing his fear of impending doom. He trembled, tears streaming as he clutched his cape. Tsuyu tilted her head, questioning whether he was in the right class. Mineta's sobs grew louder, prompting Izuku to take action. He seized Mineta by his cape, lifting him effortlessly to eye level. his glasses came off, and his body swelled, muscles bulging as the lion tattoo on his back glowed faintly through his tattered costume. His eyes blazed with intensity, radiating unrelenting pride. He demanded to know if 𝐻𝐻𝐿𝐻 was there to be a hero or a burden, urging him to stand tall or be cast aside. He dropped 𝐻𝐻𝐿𝐻, who crumpled to the deck, trembling under the weight of Izuku's gaze. Turning to Tsuyu, he softened slightly, though his authority remained. He inquired about her abilities, confirming that she possessed all the traits of a frog. She affirmed this, remaining calm. Izuku assessed their situation, contemplating their assets. He realized that while a powerful attack could end the threat, the collateral damage would be excessive. He needed precision and clarity. Suddenly he announced that he had a plan. Tsuyu nodded, attentive, while 𝐻𝐻𝐿𝐻, still sniffling, fell silent under Izuku's commanding presence. She asked for the strategy, and Izuku explained that he would unleash a punch to create a whirlpool, drawing the villains into a single point, followed by a powerful attack to incapacitate them. Tsuyu frowned, expressing concern that if the villains were unconscious in the water, they might drown. Izuku smirked, assuring her that he would evaporate the water entirely and instructed her to grab 𝐻𝐻𝐿𝐻 and leap as high as possible to avoid the heat. With her trust in him absolute, Tsuyu nodded. Izuku stepped to the ship's edge, his glasses off once more. He called upon the heat within, his body surging to its full height, muscles rippling as steam poured from his skin. The air shimmered with pressure, the deck creaking under his weight. He confirmed to Tsuyu that the moment he launched the heat attack, she should grab 𝐻𝐻𝐿𝐻 and jump high. She blushed faintly but nodded, gripping 𝐻𝐻𝐿𝐻's arm. Izuku leaped, soaring 70 feet into the air, his body a silhouette against the dome's artificial sky. He floated for a moment, the sun's light amplifying his power. He declared his challenge to the villains below, drawing back his arm and unleashing a punch toward the water. The force created a shockwave that carved a 30-foot crater in the lake, the water rushing inward to form a violent whirlpool. The villains, caught off guard, were sinking into the vortex, their cries drowned by the churning waves. Izuku raised his hand, forming a miniature sun, pulsating with searing light. He hurled the orb into the whirlpool's heart, and as it descended he extended his open hand, commanding it to flare. The sun erupted, a blinding flash that vaporized the water in an instant, leaving a steaming, empty basin. The villains lay scattered across the exposed lake bed, incapacitated and no longer a threat. Izuku glanced back at the ship, where Tsuyu and 𝐻𝐻𝐿𝐻 were falling, Tsuyu's expression one of controlled panic, while 𝐻𝐻𝐿𝐻 let out a high-pitched scream. Chuckling, Izuku launched himself toward them, catching them 30 feet from the ground with effortless grace. He landed softly, setting them down. Tsuyu exhaled, steadying herself, and expressed her thanks to Izuku. 𝐻𝐻𝐿𝐻, wide-eyed, stared at Izuku in awe. Izuku ignored him, slipping his glasses back on, his height shrinking slightly but his presence undiminished. He turned to his classmates, his voice carrying the weight of command, urging them to ensure their comrades did not perish and questioning who would dare falter when the sun's pride burned. Within him, Tsuyu nodded, resolute, while 𝐻𝐻𝐿𝐻, still trembling, found a spark of courage in Izuku's words. The lake bed lay barren, the villains defeated, but the battle for the unforeseen simulation joint 𝐬𝐻𝐽 was far from over. Explosions echoed in the distance, 𝐒𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 work, no doubt, and Izuku's eyes narrowed. He declared that they would show these villains the folly of challenging those who stood tall. With Tsuyu and 𝐻𝐻𝐿𝐻 at his side, he charged toward the next fight, a lion ready to protect his pride, his heart ablaze with unyielding resolve. The central plaza of the 𝐬𝐻𝐽 was a battlefield strewn with the unconscious forms of villains, the air thick with dust and the acrid scent of scorched earth. Izuku Midoriya, Tsuyu Azui, and Minoru 𝐻𝐻𝐿𝐻 crept toward the plaza, Tsuyu insisting on stealth despite Izuku's indifference. His glasses were off, his lion tattoo pulsing faintly through his tattered costume, and the heat in his chest burned with unyielding pride. The journey took longer than necessary, but as they emerged from the shadows, the scene before them froze their blood. Most villains lay defeated, but the monstrous Nomu had Shota Aizawa pinned, its massive form looming over the battered teacher. The hand-covered villain, Shigaraki, mocked Aizawa with a sneer, his voice dripping with malice. His eyes flicked to Izuku and 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐽, narrowing with intent. He lunged, his hand outstretched to seize 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐽's face, fingers splayed with a threatening intent. Izuku moved in a blur, his hand clamping around Shigaraki's wrist with crushing force. He advised Shigaraki not to threaten his classmates in his presence, his voice calm but laced with menace that echoed through the plaza. The threat hung heavy, a silent vow of retribution. Shigaraki sneered, undeterred, and called for the 𝐻𝐼𝐻. The beast moved, a blur of raw power, its fist aimed at Izuku's face. The impact landed with a thunderous crack, but Izuku didn't budge, his head unmoving, his eyes locked on the creature with cold curiosity. He mused that its strength and speed rivaled All Might's. Shigaraki's grin widened, his voice dripping with pride as he revealed that the 𝐻𝐼𝐻 was crafted to kill All Might. Izuku raised an eyebrow, unimpressed, and ordered 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐽 and Minato to get Aizawa to safety at the top of the stairs. His tone carried such authority that the two sprang into action without hesitation, scrambling to drag their teacher away. The plaza trembled as the entrance doors exploded inward, revealing All Might, his face devoid of its usual grin. His eyes swept the scene, and in a flash, he dispatched the remaining conscious villains, scooping Aizawa, 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐽, and Minato into his arms and leaping to the stairs. 𝐬𝐮's voice cut through the chaos, alerting All Might that Izuku was still down there, fighting a monster meant to kill him. All Might nodded, his expression grim, and descended to Izuku's side in an instant. He acknowledged Izuku's capability but asked him to find their classmates scattered across the USJ. Izuku's gaze met All Might's, his eyes burning with disdain. For a moment, he considered refusing, but his duty as class president prevailed. He reluctantly agreed, his voice dripping with scorn as he called All Might a faker. In a burst of speed that cracked the ground, he vanished, leaving a gust of wind in his wake. The conflagration zone roared with flames, the air shimmering with heat. Izuku surged through the inferno, his costume singed but his body untouched. Masahiro Ojiro battled a trio of villains, his tail whipping fiercely. Izuku descended like a meteor, his fist shattering the ground as he landed, sending shockwaves that knocked the villains flat. He instructed Ojiro to head to the plaza stairs, and Ojiro nodded, sprinting off as Izuku moved on, the flames parting before him. In the mountain zone, Momo Yaoyorozu, Kyokujiro, and Denki Kaminari were cornered, their defenses faltering against a single, relentless villain wielding a chain WHP quirk. Izuku appeared, his silhouette towering against the rocky backdrop. With a single palm strike, he sent the villain crashing into a boulder, unconscious. He instructed them to head to the plaza stairs, and the trio nodded, gratitude in their eyes, before fleeing. The landslide zone and ruins zone were empty, the villains already dispatched or fled. In the downpour zone, sheets of rain obscured the air, but Izuku found havibg Tokoyami and Koji Koda fending off a pair of water-manipulating villains. Izuku's arrival was a tempest. His fist met one villain's chest, sending him skidding through the mud, while a sweeping kick dropped the other. He directed them to the plaza stairs, and they nodded, hurrying off. 3 minutes had passed, and Izuku landed back in the central plaza with a thud that echoed through the dome. All Might grappled with the 𝐻𝐼𝐻, his punches shaking the ground but failing to overpower the beast. Shoto Todoroki, Katsuki Bakugo, and Eijiro Kirishima watched from a distance, their faces tense. Izuku appeared beside Todoroki, who spared him a glance but said nothing. Izuku approached All Might with an air of mockery, questioning his strength in his twilight years. The pressure he radiated brought the fight to a standstill, even causing the 𝐻𝐼𝐻 to pause and regard him. He declared that he had secured the others and, sensing All Might's struggle, offered to take his place, asserting his own power with unwavering confidence. His proclamation left the plaza in stunned silence. Shigaraki observed, his thoughts racing. This kid treated All Might with such disdain, as if he were not just an NPC but a character with real agency. Before anyone could react, the 𝐻𝐼𝐻 charged, aiming a powerful fist at Izuku's chest. Izuku met the attack head-on, their clash creating a shockwave that cracked the tiles beneath them. The creature's eyes widened, recognizing a formidable opponent. Izuku grinned, his pride igniting as he welcomed the challenge. The 𝐻𝐿𝐵 swung again, its speed a blur, but Izuku matched it, parrying the blows with forearms that sparked upon impact. He ducked under a massive punch and countered with a knee to the 𝐻𝐿𝐵's midsection, causing it to stagger. However, the beast lunged again, claws slashing through the air. Izuku spun, narrowly avoiding the attack, and delivered a powerful uppercut to the 𝐻𝐿𝐵's sternum, the force reverberating through the plaza. The creature remained standing, unfazed. Shigaraki laughed maniacally, taunting Izuku about the 𝐻𝐿𝐵's shock absorption abilities, claiming it could soak up every blow like a sponge. Izuku's expression darkened as he leaped back to create distance. If brute force wouldn't work, he decided to wield the gift crafted for him by his dear friend. He raised his arm, fingers splayed, and made a grabbing motion. For a moment, nothing happened, and Shigaraki prepared to mock him, but then the ceiling exploded, debris raining down. A gleaming object shot through the air, and Izuku caught it with ease. In his hand was a massive, one-sided golden battle axe, its blade curled and wicked. The handle, wrapped in dark green, was designed for one-handed use, featuring a guard with 4 evenly spaced spikes. Twin spearhead-like blades jutted from the top and opposite side, glinting ominously. The weapon radiated power, its presence silencing the plaza. Izuku announced that it was Divine Axe 𝗧𝗱, forged for the lion's sin of pride. The 𝐻𝐿𝐵 instinctively took a step back, sensing the threat. Shigaraki's laughter faltered as he stared wide-eyed. Todoroki, Bakugo, and Kirishima watched in awe, while All Might's jaw tightened. Izuku raised a finger, his gaze fixed on the 𝐻𝐿𝐵, proclaiming that it should tremble before him. He introduced himself as Izuku Midoriya, the lion's sin of pride, and declared that his wrath was unyielding. He charged forward, swinging 𝗧𝗱 in a golden arc. The 𝐻𝐿𝐵 roared and met the strike with a fist, but the axe's edge bit into its arm, drawing a dark substance. Izuku pressed on, his movements a blur of precision and power. He spun and slashed 𝗧𝗱 across the 𝐻𝐿𝐵's chest, the blade carving deep gashes. The creature howled in response, retaliating with a flurry of punches that shook the ground. Izuku danced through the onslaught, his agility allowing him to evade the 𝐻𝐿𝐵's speed, and countered with a sweeping strike that sent the creature skidding across the plaza, cracking the concrete beneath it. Izuku taunted the 𝐻𝐿𝐵, questioning if this was the might meant to defeat All Might. He raised 𝗧𝗱 high, the axe glowing with a fiery aura, and unleashed a powerful attack called Sun's Judgment. The impact released a wave of heat and force, scorching the plaza and sending the 𝐻𝐿𝐵 crashing through a wall, its body battered but still stirring. Shigaraki screamed in frustration, but Izuku's gaze remained unwavering. He advanced with 𝗧𝗱 resting on his shoulder, his presence a blazing sun amidst the chaos. He declared that the villain could either flee or fall, for none could stand equal in his presence. The battle was far from over, but Izuku stood resolute, embodying the lion, his pride a beacon ready to protect his classmates and shatter any who dared oppose him. He proclaimed that the axe was a gift from his dear benefactor and that he would use it to achieve his dream. As he approached the 𝐻𝐿𝐵, the beast sensed the threat and advanced, stopping just 5 feet away, their gazes locked. Izuku's inquisitive, the 𝐻𝐿𝐵's blank. Shigaraki laughed, questioning Izuku's confidence in facing the 𝐻𝐿𝐵. Izuku turned, narrowing his eyes and asking for Shigaraki's name. Tamura Shigaraki introduced himself, dismissing the significance of it. Izuku's lips curled into a fierce grin, and he let out a laugh that echoed through the plaza, a sound of untamed pride. He declared it a fitting name for a fleeting foe and, in an instant, swung 𝗧𝗱 with blinding speed. The blade sliced through the 𝐻𝐿𝐵's midsection, cleaving it in half above the waist. The creature collapsed, its halves thudding to the ground. The plaza fell silent, with Izuku's classmates gaping in shock, All Might's eyes wide, and Bakugo's fists trembling with suppressed rage. One strike, Izuku mused, turning to Shigaraki. He had overestimated the creature. If this was the best Shigaraki could offer, he suggested fleeing, for none could stand before the Sun's Chosen. Shigaraki ranted, scratching his neck furiously, accusing Izuku of being nothing but a cheater. Kurogiri's voice cut through the tension. He urged Shigaraki to calm himself, hinting that shock absorption wasn't its only quirk. The words froze the plaza, and Izuku raised a curious eyebrow. Shigaraki's panic subsided as he acknowledged 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐵's words. He pointed out that the 𝗰𝐻 was fixing itself. A grotesque sound filled the air as muscle strands reconnected, and within moments, the creature stood whole, roaring with renewed vigor. Shigaraki boasted about the 𝗰𝐻's hyper-regeneration and commanded it to attack Izuku. The 𝗰𝐻 charged, its arm raised. Izuku swung 𝗧𝗓, severing the limb at the shoulder with a flash of gold. The creature's head snapped back as Izuku followed with a powerful kick to its chest, disrupting its shock absorption and sending it skidding back. He considered another swing but paused, deciding that carving it to pieces would make him seem savage. Instead, he wanted to test its limits with 𝗧𝗓's might. He turned to Allmight, tossing the axe to him. Allmight fumbled but managed to catch it, nearly buckling under its weight. Izuku instructed him to keep it in sight and turned back to the regenerated 𝗰𝐻. The two clashed in a tempest of power. The 𝗰𝐻's blows were relentless, each punch creating shockwaves, but Izuku met them head-on with ease. He retrieved 𝗧𝗓 from Allmight and swung the axe in sweeping arcs, each strike a golden blur that carved gashes across the 𝗰𝐻's chest. The beast roared, its wounds closing, and countered with a flurry of claws. Izuku spun, 𝗧𝗓's spearhead blades slashing the 𝗰𝐻's flank. He taunted the creature, questioning its might and daring it to challenge the lion's pride. The 𝗰𝐻 lunged with blinding speed, but Izuku parried with 𝗧𝗓's guard, the spikes catching the beast's fist. He twisted, bringing the axe's main blade down and slicing through the 𝗰𝐻's shoulder. The creature staggered, regenerating, and Izuku pressed the assault, his laughter echoing with confidence. He swung 𝗧𝗓 in a diagonal arc, the blade biting deep into the 𝗰𝐻's torso, sending it crashing into a pillar, which crumbled under the impact. Shigaraki cackled, insisting that the 𝗰𝐻 absorbed all Izuku threw at it and would heal from any attack. He claimed Izuku was done for. Izuku's eyes narrowed, his laughter fading to a cold smirk. He questioned who decided that his attacks had no effect and who determined that this monster would kill him. He raised his right arm, pointing skyward with a single finger. The air shimmered, and a sun formed as large as his body, radiating searing heat and pressure that pressed against everyone in the plaza. Allmight thought to himself, wondering just what this kid was capable of, while Shigaraki's mind raced with panic. Now, cruel Sunday. Izuku roared, the sun blazing brighter and hotter, its light blinding. He declared that he alone would decide his fate and move his hand forward, launching the orb at the 𝗰𝐻. The creature raised its arms to block, but the sun engulfed it, scorching its flesh as it skidded back, propelled by the force. Izuku raised 𝗧𝗓, channeling his power into the axe. Sun's judgment. He bellowed, swinging the blade downward. A wave of heat and force erupted, merging with the cruel sun, and the 𝗰𝐻 was launched skyward, smashing through the ceiling in a shower of debris. The sun carried it higher, out of sight, its roars fading into silence. Izuku stood unyielding, showing no hint of fatigue. He turned to Shigaraki and 𝗀𝐻𝐿, 𝗧𝗓 resting on his shoulder, and asked if they wished to continue. His voice was calm, almost casual, yet it carried a weight that silenced the plaza. Bakugo fumed, his pride battered, while Todoroki and Kirishima stared in awe. Shigaraki screamed in disbelief, questioning what Izuku was. He had been supposed to be an NPC, dead in seconds, but now he appeared as a formidable secret boss. Izuku tilted his head, amused by the notion of being a secret boss. He stepped forward, 𝗧𝗓 gleaming, and declared that he was the lion's sin of pride, and none could stand equal in his presence. A gunshot rang out, and Shigaraki collapsed, clutching his leg and then his arm as Snipe's bullets found their mark. 𝗀𝐻𝐿 warped to his side, enveloping him in mist, and they vanished. Izuku glanced up, seeing Snipe and the other teachers at the plaza's edge. He noted that backup had arrived and strode to Allmight, retrieving 𝗧𝗓 and resting it on his shoulder. He suggested they join the others, and Kirishima nodded with a grin. Bakugo, still fuming, crossed his arms but followed. Todoroki gave a curt nod and trailed behind. As the group ascended the stairs, Izuku paused, his gaze fixed on Allmight. He questioned whether All Might was so frail that his true self would soon be revealed. Without waiting for a response, he turned and strode toward his classmates, who fell silent under his imposing presence. Approaching Ochako, who held his glasses with a flushed face, he gently lifted her onto his shoulder, her surprised squeak eliciting a chuckle from him. He declared that they would ensure their pride remained unbroken as he led his class forward, a lion among heroes, his axe a symbol of his unwavering will. Tamura Shigaraki stumbled through the portal, collapsing onto the grimy floor of a dimly lit room, groaning as pain shot through his bullet wounds. BLD seeped from his leg and arm, staining the concrete. Across the room, a TV monitor flickered, a distorted voice emanating from it, cold and calculating. The voice noted that by the wounds Tamura bore and the absence of the Nomu, it was assumed that it had been defeated. Tamura rasped, thick with frustration, acknowledging that the Nomu had indeed been beaten, not by All Might, but by a secret boss. His words dripped with venom, his hands twitching as if to scratch away his failure. The voice paused, a rare note of surprise creeping in, and asked for a description of this person. Tamura described a kid who was taller, almost as big as All Might, stronger too. He wielded a massive axe and unleashed a fiery attack that obliterated the Nomu. What stood out most was his blatant disrespect for All Might, calling him old and weak, claiming he was stronger. Tamura's voice grew heated, his fingers clawing at his neck. The sensei's mind churned, caught off guard. It was assumed that it would be All Might's successor, but this boy's disrespect and heat-based attacks were not characteristic of his brother's quirk. His successor wouldn't scorn him. The voice inquired about the boy's appearance. Tamura described bushy dark green and black hair, shining green eyes, and freckles on his face. He mentioned that All Might called him Midoriya, which might be his last name. The sensei acknowledged Tamura's information, stating that his failure was a lesson. He encouraged Tamura to rebuild and grow stronger, instructing him to heal up and that they would talk later. The feed cut, leaving silence. The sensei leaned back, a grin spreading across his shadowed face, contemplating a hero hopeful who surpassed All Might and disdained him, a new piece on the board, one he could manipulate willingly or not. His smug laughter echoed in the dark. That night, under a canopy of stars, Izuku Midoriya lay on a beach towel at Dagoba Beach, the waves whispering against the shore. He bit into a sweet pastry, its warmth a faint echo of the heat in his chest. His hand rested in Mei Hatsum's pink dreadlocks, her head nestled against him, her eyes half closed in contentment. Izuku chuckled, feeling the moon's faint glow stir a familiar fire within him, a reflection of the sun's power. He shifted closer, allowing Mei to bask in his warmth, their quiet intimacy a shield against the world's chaos. The next day, in UA's meeting room, Detective Tsukachi briefed the faculty. He reported that the police had investigated the League of Villains. No one named Shigaraki in his 20s or 30s was registered with a disintegration quirk, nor was there a Kurogyri with a warp gate. They were likely using aliases and possibly were not even citizens. When Shigaraki's wounds healed, he would strike again, a nuisance. Snipe, the cowboy-hatted teacher, grumbled. All Might muttered about their ringleader, drawing 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴's attention. 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴 inquired what was on All Might's mind. All Might explained that it was a bold attack, one ordinary people wouldn't dare attempt. Shigaraki had rambled wildly, not revealing his quirk but bragging about the Nomu's abilities. When things went awry, he lost control. The quirk display was meant to force All Might's hand, but he trailed off. 𝐒𝐮𝐴 remarked that it was foolish to squander the advantage of unknown quirks against heroes, with Tsukachi nodding in agreement. All Might added that Shigaraki made childish claims with a straight face, believing everything would go his way. The impression he got was of a man-child clinging to a naive sense of omnipotence. A teacher with an X-shaped scar questioned whether this was a child with power. Midnight suggested that perhaps he never received quirk counseling in school. Snipe pressed for clarity on the relevance of that. Tsukachi noted that there had been 72 villains arrested at USJ, all small-time thugs from back alleys. The issue was how they rallied behind this man-child. In a hero-saturated world, oppressed villains might be drawn to his simplistic evil. Plenty of people don't know what to do with their quirks, Snipe observed. That's concerning, Midnight replied with a sigh. Thanks to you heroes, we can focus on our investigation, 𝐬𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 stated. We'll expand our search and assist in making arrests. A man-child, Nizu pondered, catching All Might's eye. In some ways he resembles our students. Someone is nurturing his malice. All Might thought about the potential consequences. U. Reopened and Class 1A settled into their classroom, the buzz from the USJ incident still fresh. Toru Hagakure asked 𝐀𝐮𝐬𝐴 Shoji and Masahiro Ojiro if they had watched the news last night. They nodded in response. Everyone in class was on screen for a moment. I didn't stand out at all, that's true, Shoji agreed. Ojiro flinched, imagining the girls of 1A. It's hard to stand out like that, isn't it? It's no big deal, Denki Kaminari said to Eijiro Kirishima. Just the news channels making a big deal out of it. I was surprised, Kirishima admitted. Can't blame them, Kyoka Jiro remarked. The hero course that produces professionals got attacked. Who knows what would have happened without the teachers, Hanta sighed. Stop that, Siro. You're making me anxious, Minoru Mineta exclaimed, jumping in his seat. Be quiet, you fool. Katsuki Bakugo shouted. Would you all be quiet for a moment? Izuku's voice cut through the chatter, calm but edged with irritation. His glasses were on, but his presence felt heavy. The class froze, sensing his foul mood. Why should I listen to you, Deku? Bakugo snapped. In an instant, Izuku's hand shot out, his fist stopping just inches from Bakugo's face, the air around them crackling with tension. Sweat beaded on Bakugo's forehead, his eyes widening. Izuku warned him that testing his patience would have consequences, his voice low and filled with promise. He withdrew his hand, leaving Bakugo visibly shaken. Everyone! Morning homeroom is about to start. Take your seats. Tenya Ida shouted from the front. We're seated. You're not, Siro quipped. Ida sat down, his fists trembling. Come on. Don't worry about it, Ochako reassured him, her gaze flickering to Izuku with concern. Tsu, who's teaching homeroom? Mina Ashido asked, leaning back until she nearly fell, but Tsu caught her. The door slid open, revealing Aizawa, wrapped in bandages. Morning, he muttered. Aizawa-sensei, you're back too soon, the class exclaimed. You're too much of a pro. Kaminari said, horrified, while Kirishima nodded in approval. Are you really all right? Ida asked, raising his hand. Can you call that all right? Ochako whispered. Forcing yourself to teach is illogical, sensei, Izuku remarked, his glasses softening his warm aura, which eased the room's tension. My well-being doesn't matter, Aizawa stated as he reached the podium. More importantly, the fight isn't over yet. Fight. Bakugo smirked. Don't tell me, Izuku muttered. Villains again. Mineta squeaked. The 𝐬𝐴 Sports Festival is drawing near, Aizawa announced. That's a super normal school event, the class shouted. Kirishima echoed, a super normal, before Kaminari covered his mouth. Is it wise to hold it so soon after the attack? Jiro asked. What if they strike again? Ojiro added. The administration believes it shows the threat is under control, Aizawa explained. Security has been increased. This is a huge opportunity for you all, not something we cancel because of a failed villain attack. Why not? It's just a festival, Mineta whined. Izuku turned, his gaze sharp. Mineta, don't you understand the importance of the sports festival? Of course, I just don't want to get hurt. Mineta exclaimed, sweating. The 𝐬𝐴 Sports Festival is Japan's most watched event, Aizawa continued, cutting them off. Top heroes will be scouting you. It's #1 for viewership. Top heroes watch, Momo agreed. You can get scouted. Unless you're out of the running. Mineta retorted. She's right, Kaminari said. Sidekick opportunities after graduation come from this. But some stay sidekicks forever, Jiro teased. Like you maybe. You're not the brightest. Ow, Kaminari pouted. Scouting means experience and popularity, Aizawa explained. This festival opens doors. One chance a year, 3 in a lifetime. No aspiring hero can afford to miss it. Don't slack in training. Yes, sir, the class chorused. Hours later, after 𝐶𝐮𝐬𝐺𝐻's modern literature class, the lunch bell rang. Class 1A buzzed about the sports festival, some excited, others nervous. Kirishima exclaimed that he was pumped. If we shine, we're practically pros. Ciro grinned. It's why we're here, Rikido Sato said, punching his palm. We get few chances. We must seize this, Fumikage Tokoyami agreed. I'm jealous, Shoji. Your quirk is unique, Kaminari sighed. Usefulness matters more than flash, Shoji replied. You'll make a scene anyway, Jiro snickered at Kaminari, who grumbled in response. Their excitement shows they'll give their all, Izuku said, clenching his fist. A playful smack hit his shoulder, and he chuckled, turning to see Ochako's mischievous eyes. She encouraged him to do their best, smiling brightly. He pulled her closer, their camaraderie evident. Yes, let's do our best, he said with a smirk. Ochako leapt up, her competitive spirit ignited. Everyone! I'm going to do my best! She shouted, a pink aura of determination radiating as she punched the air. Several students echoed their agreement, raising their fists in enthusiasm. Ochako reiterated her determination to do her best, her excitement contagious. Concerned, Tsu tilted her head and asked if Ochako was okay. During lunch, Izuku and Mei found a quiet spot in the courtyard, sitting under the shade of a tree with their cafeteria meals spread out before them. They shared bites of food, their closeness drawing the attention of others. Upper-year girls cooed at the sight, while other couples mirrored their intimacy on the clear day. A blue-haired third-year girl gushed about how adorable they looked, sitting with her friends. Her red-headed companion smiled and urged her to calm down and eat. A muscular blonde teen commented on Izuku's strength, noting that he had fought the most at USJ. A navy-haired student sighed, expressing disbelief at the thought of facing villains in his first month. The blue-haired girl encouraged him, reminding him that as a third year, he was past that point. The redhead teased him about being a downer despite being a top 3 student. Izuku overheard their conversation, his enhanced senses catching every word, but his focus remained on Mei. She leaned closer, sharing a gentle kiss with him. He embraced her, resting his head atop hers, finding warmth and comfort in their connection. That evening, Izuku returned to Dagoba Beach, where the gentle waves lapped under a starlit sky. Sitting on a towel with his glasses off, he gazed at the ocean, the faint glow of his lion tattoo reflecting his inner strength. The moonlight stirred a quiet warmth within him, a softer echo of the sun's fire. He exhaled, feeling calm, his pride tempered yet ever-present. He mused about the challenges ahead, feeling like a king at rest, his resolve unshaken. As the bell rang, signaling the end of the day's last class, Class 1A began packing their belongings, the room filled with the sounds of rustling bags and chatter. A few students paused, catching a muffled sound from the hallway. When Ochako opened the door to leave, she froze at the sight of a corridor packed with students from other classes, all staring back at Class 1A. She exclaimed in surprise, questioning why they were all there. Tenya stepped forward, asking if they had business with their class. Minoru demanded to know why they were blocking the doorway, suggesting they were trying to hold them hostage. Katsuki sneered as he approached the door, explaining that they were scouting out the competition since Class 1A had faced real villains. He noted that they wanted to see them in person. A few students from Class 1A bristled at Bakugu's abrasive tone. Ochako frowned, Mineta pointed at him in disbelief, while Izuku shook his head, feeling exasperated by Bakugu's typical attitude. Bakuga declared that at least the crowd now knew what a future pro looked like and told them to move along. Izuku thought to himself, resigned to Bakugu's permanent attitude. Ida admonished Bakugu for calling people extras, simply because he didn't know them. A purple-haired student pushed through the crowd, expressing his disbelief at Class 1A's demeanor. He locked eyes with Bakugu, unflinching, and questioned whether everyone in the hero course was delusional or just him. Bakugu growled in response, his frustration evident as Class 1A waved frantically, trying to defuse the tension. The purple-haired teen continued, lamenting the presence of egomaniacs and sharing that he had wanted to join the hero course but was forced into another track. He mentioned that if any of them performed well in the sports festival, teachers might transfer some of them to the hero course, which made several students from Class 1A stiffen at the reminder. 𝐻𝐿𝐮𝐦𝐦𝐚𝐫𝐲 looked ready to snap. The purple-haired student declared that while some might be scouting the competition, he was there to make it clear that if they didn't bring their best, he would take their spot. He asserted that he had worked hard before and after the entrance exams and wouldn't lose to anyone who wasn't serious about becoming a hero. Class 1A collectively wondered where this guy had come from. Another voice shouted from the crowd, belonging to a teen with messy, chin-length gray hair and jagged, tan eyelashes. He pushed forward, expressing his longing to see what was happening after hearing about the villain attack, but accused Class 1A of acting like punks who thought they were better than others. Several students from Class 1A groaned internally, worried that everyone would now hate their class. That's a rather brash claim, isn't it? Izuku stepped forward, heat simmering beneath his glasses. He questioned when anyone had claimed superiority over the other class. The gray-haired teen blinked, caught off guard by the challenge. Izuku continued, meeting his eyes with determination, curious about how he had reached such a conclusion. He pointed out that none of them had said anything except 𝐻𝐿𝐮𝐦𝐦𝐚𝐫𝐲, who was being his usual abrasive self. The teen fumbled for words, murmurs rippling through the crowd. The purple-haired student raised an eyebrow at Izuku. "You jumped to conclusions and made up your own mind," 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 said, standing close to Izuku. The gray-haired teen rubbed his head, looking sheepish as he admitted his mistake. He introduced himself as 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐵 from Class 1B and explained that he had wanted to see Class 1A but lost his cool after hearing 𝐻𝐿𝐮𝐦𝐴 speak. "It's fine. 𝐻𝐻𝐿𝐮𝐦 has a way of upsetting everyone when he opens his mouth," 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 said with a mirthless chuckle. "Leave me alone," 𝐻𝐻𝐿𝐮𝐦 shouted, stomping through the crowd. "Oh no, I made him upset," 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 said, feigning concern poorly. Izuku placed a hand on her head, calming her with a smile. The purple-haired teen sighed, acknowledging that maybe Class 1A wasn't as full of themselves as he had thought. However, he declared that his goal of getting into the hero course remained unchanged. He intended to claim one of those 40 seats by the festival's end and walked away, causing the crowd to disperse. "Well, that was different," Mina Ishido remarked, the tension in Class 1A easing as they grabbed their bags and left. Izuku remained silent during the walk, prompting Mei Hatsum to pinch his cheek. She asked what was on his mind. Rubbing his face, Izuku's eyes gleamed with excitement as he expressed his anticipation for the competition, feeling invigorated by the thought of it. The following 2 weeks saw hero course students and those aiming for it training relentlessly. 𝐻𝐿𝐮𝐦𝐴's gym and track buzzed with activity, a yearly ritual that amused the teachers, except for Aizawa, who rolled his eyes while struggling to sip coffee through his bandages, his colleagues chuckling at his expense. As the sports festival began, Mina complained in Class 1's waiting room, dressed in standard gym uniforms. "It's to keep things fair, Mina," Momo Yaoyorozu reminded her. "Other classes don't have costumes, so uniforms level the field, aside from quirk advantages. I wonder what the first round is this year." Rikido Sato mused, fidgeting to quell his nerves. The anticipation was almost unbearable. "It doesn't matter what comes. We must face the organizers' challenges," Fumikage Tokoyami said, arms crossed and eyes closed. "He's right. We show we can handle anything, like true heroes," Mizo Shoji agreed, seated at a table. "Is everybody ready?" "We'll enter the stadium soon," Ida announced, watching the clock. The class stood, eager to prove themselves. Todoroki approached Izuku, who was chatting with 𝐻𝐿𝐮𝐦𝐴, her playful punches met with his smirks. Todoroki addressed Izuku directly, and the class turned their attention to the 2 strongest students. He bluntly stated that they were the strongest in the room, suggesting that Izuku might even be stronger than he was, which drew gasps from the class. 𝐻𝐿𝐮𝐦𝐴 bristled, nearly shouting in response. Izuku raised an eyebrow, asking what Todoroki meant by that. "Regardless of your power, I will beat you," Todoroki declared confidently. The room fell silent, shocked by the quiet teen's bold words. Kaminari blinked in surprise, glancing between them. Hey, why pick a fight now? The festival's starting. Kirishima said, trying to ease the tension. Izuku grinned, welcoming the competition. He reminded Todoroki that he had more than just him to face and that focusing solely on him could lead to underestimating others. The class perked up, inspired by Izuku's words, except for Bakugo, who muttered about crushing everyone. Mineta, closest to him, slid away nervously. That response was so manly, Midoriya. Kirishima exclaimed, fist-pumping with enthusiasm. Time to go. Let's march to the field orderly. Ida declared, leading the way. Present Mick's booming voice filled the stadium, and the crowd roared in response. He hyped up the audience, asking if they were ready for the performances that would unfold during the sports festival. The stadium erupted with excitement. How did I get roped into this? Aizawa grumbled beside him. Time to welcome our students. Mike shouted, starting alphabetically with our hero course classes. Give it up for Class 1A and Class 1B. The crowd exploded with cheers as Class 1A and 1B emerged from the tunnel. After the USJ attack, rumors had circulated about how 2 teachers and 1 student had thwarted dozens of villains. Dimon, this place is packed. Zero said, awed by the flashing cameras. Next, the students who keep you among Japan's top 3 academic schools. General Studies classes 1C, 1D, and 1E. Look out, hero course, some want your seats. Mike hyped, and Izuku noticed the General Studies students standing taller, ready to make their mark. Some hero course students could learn from their grades, Aizawa remarked, causing a few to flinch. Now, they're talented gear producers. Support course classes 1F, 1G, and 1H, Mike announced as support students, some in self-made gear, appeared. Mei smirked at Izuku. Quality gear can decide battles, Aizawa noted, as the support students grinned. And last, the ones mastering the economy and hero marketing. Business course classes 1I, 1J, and 1K. Wanna go independent, hero course. Make friends here, Mike declared. The business students chuckled, aware of their value to aspiring heroes. That was a fair introduction for all courses, a General Studies brunette commented, catching Izuku's attention. A loud crack drew attention to the stage, where Midnight appeared, her confident demeanor eliciting grins from the male audience. It's time for the opening speech, she announced. Please welcome this year's chief umpire for the first-year tournament, the R-rated hero, Midnight. What about the principal? An attendee wondered. He's at the third-year stage, every year. Another replied, eyes focused on Midnight. Someone should talk to Midnight about her outfit, Kirishima said, his cheeks flushed. That costume needs a warning label, Kaminari agreed, staring. Is that appropriate for a high school festival? Tokoyami questioned. Mineta gave an enthusiastic thumbs up, his gaze fixed on Midnight. Silence, everyone. Midnight commanded, cracking her WHP. For the student pledge, we have Midoriya Izuku of Class 1A. All eyes turned to Izuku, who knew his entrance exam score earned him this role. Ochako nudged him, smirking, and he chuckled, shaking his head at Midnight's subtle wink as he approached the stage. The crowd murmured. I'm pleased to represent my fellow first years, Izuku said, nodding to the students below. Some of you aren't into this event, while others aim for the hero course's 40 seats. To both I say, let's have fun. But to those after our seats, bring your best. We earned our places in the entrance exam. If you want them, earn them here at the sports festival. We welcome the competition. Let's push each other toward our hero goals. The crowd erupted, cheering wildly. Midnight squealed, hugging herself at the youthful passion. Even the first years clapped, inspired. Izuku bowed and rejoined his class, Mei beaming at him. What a pledge. If that hasn't fired you up, you're already dead, Mike exclaimed. With that spirit blazing, let's reveal the first event. Get your foot off the desk, Aizawa muttered. Time to find out the first game. Midnight cried, the display behind her spinning. This is when our students feel the pressure. This year's first event is. The display stopped on obstacle race. An obstacle race. Midnight cracked her WHP, her smile mischievous. Here we go. Mike shouted, the students staring at their first challenge. The sports festival was ready to get heated. An obstacle race. The first-year students chorused, eyes fixed on the display screen. The course will be 1 full lap around the stadium. The total length is 4 kilometers. As you all know, high selling point is freedom. Midnight gave a playful look as she liked her lips. There are only 2 rules. First, you have to run the entire course. No shortcuts or you'll be disqualified. The pro cracked her WHP toward the first years. The second rule is no attacking other students. Messing with the field to your advantage is fine, but direct attacks are not. Other than that, everything goes. You know the rules now, little listeners. Play fair and get back here first to be the winner. Break either of the 2 rules and you're out of the festival completely. Present Mike called out through the stadium speakers. Now then, take your places, everyone. Midnight yelled, making the crowd cheer as the first event was about to begin. The students moved to the tunnel marking the starting line. Izuku Midoriya let out a sigh, feeling the sun's heat envelop his body as he glanced at his peers. The Hero Corps students radiated determination, their seats on the line igniting a fire within them. He noted the same resolve in others, especially the purple-haired teen who declared war on Class 1A and 𝐴𝐻𝗧𝗟𝗓, who flashed him a competitive smile. Izuku returned it, his pride simmering. The countdown began, the first red light fading. I wonder what the prize is for winning this race, Izuku mused. You might offer an advantage for the next round, or a hidden challenge. They'd make success a trial. The yellow light blinked out. No time to wonder. I'll do my best. Izuku grinned, power surging through him. Even with more people around, I will win, he thought, as if victory was already his. His body bulked up, heat radiating from his form. The green light flashed. Start. Midnight and Mike shouted in unison. In an instant, every student surged forward. Izuku took a single leap, clearing the crowd faster than most could register, a blur of green and gold soaring above the chaos. Let's check out the action. Ready to give commentary, Eraser? Present Mike asked Aizawa. Aizawa drawled, still unsure why he had to be up there. We'll get started right away, Eraser. What should the crowd watch in the first few minutes? Mike pressed, undeterred. Aizawa observed the first years rushing into the narrow tunnel and noted that the moves made in this opening section would be important. Inside, shouts echoed as students squeezed together, the tunnel too tight for all to pass. It was a deliberate test of ingenuity, forcing them to outsmart the bottleneck. A sudden chill hit, and the floor iced over, freezing most students' shoes to the ground. Cries of alarm and accusations of unfairness rang out as Shoto Todoroki sprinted past, leaving a trail of ice. Todoroki focused on winning the race, frost trailing behind him and making the path treacherous. Katsuki Bakugo roared, determined not to let Todoroki take the lead, blasting into the air with explosions. Eijiro Kirishima yelled encouragement, leaping to clear the ice before it trapped him. Momo Yaoyorozu vaulted over the ice with a pole conjured from her palm, noting that Todoroki's move was naive. The purple-haired teen apologized as he parkoured over trapped students, using them as stepping stones to dodge the frost. Yuga Aoyama declared that his sparkle could overcome any obstacle, his laser propelling him through the air. Mina Ashido shouted in surprise, her acid-dissolving shoes clearing patches in the ice. Bachako Uraraka floated above the track, relieved she had practiced this, even as her stomach churned. Tsuyu Azui leaped beside Ochako, her frog quirk helping to clear the tunnel. Bakugo yelled, challenging Todoroki as he used explosions to boost his speed. Todoroki noted that more people dodged his ice than he expected, refocusing on the track. He blinked in surprise. Izuku was already far ahead, having cleared the tunnel entirely. Todoroki wondered when Izuku had passed him, unable to recall seeing him. Mike announced that Midoriya was already in the lead, having launched ahead before Todoroki's ice trap struck the tunnel, showcasing impressive leg strength. Aizawa commented that Midoriya's decisive action to leap over the tunnel using his enhanced strength was commendable. Mineta taunted Todoroki, bouncing over the ice with his sticky orbs, only to be sent tumbling aside by a metallic fist as dozens of one-pointer robots from the entrance exam burst through the track's walls. 8 zero-pointers rose from the forest, dust billowing around them. Mike announced the sudden appearance of enemies, calling it a test of strength and cunning, dubbing it the Robo Inferno as the robots targeted the students. Denki Kaminari skidded to a halt, shocked to see the zero-pointers from the exam. Students gasped, realizing this was what the hero course had faced. They expressed their concern about the overwhelming number of robots blocking their path. Todoroki mused about the challenges the others faced during their exams, sizing up the robots. Momo wondered where the school had gotten funding for such obstacles as she stood with Ochako and Kyoka. Izuku, barely slowing, struck first. A massive bang echoed as he shoulder-tackled a zero-pointer, sending it reeling. He commanded it to move away, pressing his hands against its metal torso. Heat surged from his palms, causing the metal to glow and melt. The zero-pointer collapsed, stunning the crowd. Mike screamed in excitement, praising Midoriya for his display of power and control as he increased his lead. Pro heroes in the stands leaned forward, eyes locked on Izuku. Todoroki vowed not to let Izuku beat him, frost gathering in his hand and spreading across the ground. He remarked that while the obstacles were impressive, he wished for something more challenging, especially with his father watching. He unleashed a blast of ice, encasing 3 zero-pointers. They froze mid-attack, and he darted between their legs, chasing Izuku. Students shouted in excitement, realizing they could get through between the legs of the toppled robots. Todoroki warned them that he had frozen the robots off balance, and as the giants toppled, students scattered. He surged forward, adding that it was intentional. Mike announced Todoroki's impressive feat of defeating multiple zero-pointers in one hit, trapping competitors behind frozen metal, declaring him one to watch. His attack was both offensive and defensive. A rational, strategic move, Aizawa observed. That's expected of a recommended student. He's never fought those robots before. The Robo Inferno was extinguished by his impressive moves. Mike exclaimed, "Like hell I'm letting Todoroki and Deku surpass me." Bakugu shouted, launching himself over the remaining zero-pointers. Bakugu, also from 1A, won't give up. He goes overhead. Clever. Mike announced as more students advanced. As expected, 1A and 1B are the fastest through the first obstacle, Snipe noted from the teacher's booth. The others aren't bad, especially the general studies students aiming for the hero course, Toshinori remarked. But the training difference is clear. Hero courses don't stand still, Aizawa added as 1A and 1B tore through the robots. Momo blasted a zero-pointer's head with a conjured cannon. Mina melted robot heads with acid. Kaminari fried them with a touch. Ida kicked them aside. Kyoka shattered 2 with the vibrations from her jacks. Siro and Tokoyami followed Bakugu's lead, vaulting over. During the entrance exam, they were enemies to avoid. As opponents to defeat, they're just slow hunks of metal. Easy with smart shots, Snipe commented as zero-pointers fell. For those who thought the first obstacle was easy, let's see how you handle the second. Mike grinned. The next obstacle was a bottomless pit, with tall stone platforms spaced far apart, connected by swaying ropes. If they take a spill, they're out. They'll have to get creative. It's the fall. Mike announced as Izuku surveyed the chasm. I can handle this, Izuku thought, brimming with confidence. Crouching, he launched forward, flames erupting from his hands and feet, astonishing the crowd. With precise control, he flew over the chasm's second half, landing cleanly. Incredible! Midoriya passes the second obstacle like it's nothing. This will widen his lead. Mike exclaimed, the crowd roaring. You won't escape, Todoroki muttered, sliding across a rope with ice. He crossed a dozen platforms swiftly, reaching the other side. DMNU, Deku. I'm not copying you. Bakugu shouted, explosions propelling him over the obstacle. That's almost unfair. Ochako remarked, watching Bakugu. This, my chance to shine. Mei thought, decked in support gear. Hatsum, don't overdo it. Ochako cautioned. Don't worry. Mei replied. Hero course gets special training, so we bring our own gear to compete. We just have to make it. She launched a cable across the chasm, her hover soles lifting her with fans. Hope the support companies are watching. She swung, her boots rocketing her halfway across. We're friends, but I won't lose. Ochako declared, crossing a rope. That gear's unfair. Mina huffed, following. On the other side, Todoroki saw Bakugo gaining, frustrated as his arms ached from his Quirks kickback. Is he getting faster? A slow starter? Todoroki wondered, pushing harder. DMN it. Bakugo growled, seeing Todoroki accelerate. You all keep looking down on me. The leading three hold their positions, while the pack stays clumped. The number advancing isn't revealed, so no one can relax. Keep going. Mike urged. Izuku reached the final obstacle, a field marked Danger Mines. Smirking, he felt the sun's heat fuel his pride. With a single leap, he cleared the minefield, landing in a dust cloud and sprinting toward the finish. I couldn't even announce the final obstacle before Midoriya cleared it. Mike shouted. He leapt the minefield in one go. What a student. Midoriya knows his limits well. He calculated that leap in seconds, Aizawa said. That's the knowledge pros need. DMN, Todoroki gritted, navigating the mines carefully. This doesn't affect me. Bakugo grinned, blasting into the air, his sore arms pushing through. I can't waste time, Todoroki decided, forming an ice pillar to launch himself. He rolled upon landing, avoiding mine detonations, and skated forward on ice, shivering as he pushed his quirk. Izuku glanced back, seeing Todoroki and Bakugo closing in. Smirking, he sprinted, becoming a blur, kicking up dust as he crossed the finish line, skidding to a stop meters beyond. Midoriya makes one last impressive dash to win the obstacle race. Mike yelled as Todoroki and Bakugo crossed, Todoroki edging out Bakugo by a fraction. Bakugo growled, his hands trembling with exertion. Confetti rained as the crowd roared. Izuku raised his fist, grinning proudly at the cheering pros, their excitement palpable. Exhaling, he donned his glasses, shrinking to normal size. In the Midoriya home, Inko watched the replay, tears streaming down her face as pride overwhelmed her despite the flood of emotions. The stadium buzzed with anticipation, the crowd's cheers a living pulse as the first-year students gathered on the field, their breaths visible in the crisp air of U.S. Sports Festival. The obstacle race had just concluded, with Izuku Midoriya's blazing victory cementing his place as a force to be reckoned with. Confetti still drifted in the air, catching the sunlight like scattered embers, as Midnight took the stage, her WHP cracking to silence the masses. All right, you fired up first years. Midnight declared, her voice sultry yet commanding amplified across the stadium. The obstacle race was just the warm-up, and now it was time for the second event, the cavalry battle. The screen behind her flashed, revealing a diagram of teams carrying a rider. The deal was simple, teams of 2 to 4 would form, with one rider and the rest acting as horses. Each team carried a headband worth points based on their obstacle race ranking. The lower the rank, the fewer points, starting at 5 and increasing by 5 per rank. But there was a twist. Midnight grinned wickedly, pointing at Izuku, who stood among his classmates, his lion tattoo pulsing faintly through his gym uniform. The first-place winner, Izuku Midoriya, carried a headband worth 1 million points. Taking his team's headband guaranteed a spot in the next round. The crowd erupted, and the first years turned to Izuku, their eyes a mix of awe, envy, and determination. Class 1A, clustered near him, felt the weight of those stares. Izuku stood tall, his bulked-up form radiating heat, his green eyes gleaming with unshakable pride. He thought to himself about who would dare challenge the lion's throne. Denki Kaminari exclaimed in disbelief, clutching his head, realizing the implications of 1 million points. Everyone would be after Midoriya. Kyoka Jiro commented on the situation, acknowledging the target on Izuku's back while wishing him luck. Eijiro Kirishima scratched his head, his sharp teeth glinting as he grinned at Izuku, recognizing the challenge ahead but confident in his friend's abilities. Izuku's gaze swept the field, unperturbed. He welcomed the challenge, believing their efforts would only burn in his radiance. Present Mick's voice boomed from the commentary booth, nearly rattling the speakers as he praised Midoriya's confidence. Aizawa, slouched beside him, sighed heavily, wishing for a quieter atmosphere. The students were given 15 minutes to form teams, and the field buzzed with frantic negotiations. Izuku, however, stood alone, arms crossed, his presence a beacon of defiance. He thought he could carry this battle himself, envisioning charging through the fray, headband secure, leaving all challengers behind. His power surged, the air around him shimmering with heat, as if the sun itself crowned him. Before he could stride off, a familiar voice cut through his thoughts. 𝐻𝐻𝐿 bounded over, her pink dreadlocks bouncing, her eyes gleaming with excitement behind her goggles. She was decked out in a dizzying array of self-made gadgets, 𝗧𝗓𝗟𝗍, wire launchers, and something that resembled a mini jetpack strapped to her back. She insisted that he team up with her, claiming her inventions needed the spotlight, and he was the perfect stage. Izuku raised an eyebrow, his pride bristling but intrigued. He considered himself the sun, needing no aid to shine. 𝐿 countered, suggesting even the sun needed a cool gadget to stand out. She argued that if he wanted to win, her inventions would make him unstoppable. Demonstrating her 𝗧𝗓𝗟𝗍, she lifted off the ground and showcased her skills, insisting that Team Izuku would be a winner. Izuku's smirk softened. Her enthusiasm was infectious, and her tech could amplify his dems. He agreed, but made it clear that he would carry the team, not the other way around. Before he could say more, Ochako floated over, mock indignation on her face. She insisted on joining, stating that she wouldn't let him hog all the glory and that she could help keep 𝐿's gadgets in check. 𝐿 welcomed the addition, excited about the growing team dynamic. Izuku chuckled, the heat around him flaring briefly. He declared that Ochako and 𝐿 would ride on his shoulders, asserting that he would be the horse, confident in his unmatched strength. His voice carried a regal authority, his muscles flexing as he towered over them, the lion tattoo almost glowing under the stadium lights. Ochako blushed but nodded, determined to support him, while expressing her hope that he wouldn't drop her. Izuku felt a surge of pride as he declared that no one would fall under his protection. 𝐿, excited by his words, quickly shifted the conversation to strategy. She explained how her wire arrows could snag headbands from a distance and how her 𝗧𝗓𝗟𝗍 could provide a boost for dodging. Ochako could make them weightless to confuse their competition, while Izuku just needed to continue being his impressive self. Present Mic cheered for Team Midoriya, highlighting their combination of power, technology, and gravity-defying flair. Aizawa, however, warned that while they were a strong team, Izuku was carrying a significant target on his back, making them a prime focus for the other teams. It would be a test of endurance and strategy. The field was a whirlwind of alliances. Shoto Todoroki had teamed up with Momo Yaoyorozu, Tenya Ida, and Denki Kaminari, while Katsuki Bakugo led Eijiro Kirishima, 𝗀𝗃, and Mina Ishido. Hitoshi Shinso formed a team with 3 others from 1C, their determination fierce despite their modest points. Tetsu from Class 1B also led a squad, eyeing Izuku's headband with a competitive grin. As the teams finalized their positions, Izuku knelt, allowing Ochako and 𝐿 to climb onto his shoulders. Ochako settled on his left, her cheeks flushed as she gripped his head for balance, surprised by the height. 𝐿, on his right, was busy calibrating her gadget, muttering about optimal move vectors. She accidentally poked him with a screwdriver, earning a playful glare. Izuku urged 𝐿 to focus, rising to his full height and declaring that they were the sun's vanguard, radiating heat that made nearby teams instinctively step back. With midnight's WHP crack, the cavalry battle commenced. The field erupted into action as teams charged toward Izuku's trio. Todoroki's team led the charge, attempting to trap Izuku with ice. Izuku roared defiantly, melting the ice beneath him with a powerful stomp, sending steam into the air. Ochako clung tighter, while 𝐿 celebrated a successful shot that snagged a low-point headband from a 1C team. Encouraged by 𝐿's success, Ochako activated her quirk, making their trio weightless. Izuku leaped over a charging 1B team, landing with a thud that cracked the ground. Ochako gasped, feeling the sudden rush. Mei fired another wire, this time nearly tangling a 1D team's legs, prompting a half-joking shout from Ochako. Izuku commanded his teammates to focus as they dodged a barrage of tape from 𝗧𝗟𝗧, who was working with Bakugu's team. Bakugu charged forward, his reckless pace making it hard for his team to keep up. Present Mike was thrilled by the spectacle, commenting on the impressive dodges and teamwork. Izuku sprinted, his enhanced strength effortlessly carrying Mei and Ochako. 𝗧𝗬𝗧𝗟𝗘's team charged at them, fists hardened. As 𝗧𝗬𝗧𝗟 swung, Izuku sidestepped, the heat from his body causing 𝗧𝗬𝗧𝗟 to yelp in surprise. Facing 𝗫𝗄𝐿's team, Izuku felt a moment of hesitation as 𝗫𝗄𝐿 attempted to control him with his quirk. Ochako noticed and quickly intervened, breaking the hold. Izuku, now free, charged forward, forcing 𝗫𝗄𝐿's team to scatter as Mei's wires snagged another headband. Mei cheered, waving the headband triumphantly, exclaiming that her creations were on fire. Ochako yelped, warning her to be careful as a stray spark from Mei's jetpack singed her sleeve. Mei laughed it off, adjusting her goggles and dismissing the concerns. Mike gasped, noting how 𝗫𝗄𝐿's brainwashing had nearly caught Midoriya, but Uraraka's quick thinking had saved the day, showcasing their teamwork. Aizawa sighed, warning Mike to lower his volume or he would erase both his quirk and his voice. He pointed out that Midoriya's team was holding their ground but drawing too much attention and needed to pace themselves. The battle raged on, teams clashing in a frenzy of quirks and strategies. Todoroki's team closed in, Ida's engines roaring as they flanked Izuku. Todoroki ordered Kaminari to unleash a shockwave, electricity crackling toward Izuku's trio. Izuku instructed Ochako to act, and she made them weightless just as he leaped, narrowly avoiding the electricity. Mei fired a wire, snagging another headband from a 1E team, who stumbled in frustration. Izuku encouraged Mei as he landed and sprinted toward the center, where fewer teams dared to clash. Bakugu's team charged in, with Mina's acid clearing a path. Bakugu shouted that Deku was finished, explosions propelling them forward. 𝗧𝗟𝗧 shot tape, aiming for Mei's jetpack, but Izuku spun and vaporized the tape midair with his heat. He taunted Bakugu, declaring that his flames were no match for his pride as he charged head-on. Mike exclaimed that the battle was heating up, comparing Bakugu and Midoriya to a volcano and a supernova. Aizawa tried to intervene, but Mike continued to comment on Midoriya's impressive display of strength as he carried two girls on his shoulders while outrunning half the field. Izuku's team navigated through the chaos, with Mei's wires snagging headbands left and right, though some shots went wild, nearly hitting allies. Ochako pleaded with Mei to aim carefully as a stray wire zipped past her ear. Mei protested, claiming it was artistic chaos, while her jetpack sputtered comically, causing them to wobble. Izuku steadied them, his strength unwavering. As the timer ticked down, Todoroki's team made a final push, ice walls rising to box Izuku in. Todoroki declared that they wouldn't escape, while Momo conjured a net to trap them. Izuku's eyes blazed with determination as he raised a hand, summoning a small, fiery orb that melted the ice and vaporized the net. The crowd gasped as Todoroki's team faltered, allowing Mei to snatch a headband in the chaos. Mei celebrated, waving the headband like a flag, while Ochako groaned about the team name but couldn't help grinning at the excitement. As the final seconds approached, Izuku faced Bakugu's team, the last major threat. Bakugu roared that Deku couldn't outshine him and launched a massive explosion. Izuku countered with a heat wave, the clash sending shockwaves across the field. With Ochako making them weightless, Izuku leaped over Bakugu's team, landing just as the buzzer sounded. Midnight declared that the cavalry battle was over and the scoreboard flashed. Izuku's team held the 1 million point headband, plus 300 points from stolen bands, securing first place. Todoroki's team took second with 820 points, Bakugu's team third with 645, and 𝗫𝗄𝐿's team fourth with 510 points, their brainwashing strategy yielding surprise points. The crowd erupted in cheers as Izuku lowered Mei and Ochako slid off his shoulders, laughing. Ochako cheered about their victory, high-fiving Mei, who was already planning her next invention. Izuku praised them for shining brightly, standing tall and confident, his lion tattoo glowing faintly. Mike exclaimed about the finish, nearly knocking over his mic stand, while Aizawa rubbed his temples in exasperation, warning Mike to lower his volume. He acknowledged that Midoriya's power had overwhelmed the competition, and his teammates had covered his weaknesses. As the teams dispersed, Izuku caught Todoroki's eye, who nodded grudgingly. Bakugo fumed, kicking the ground, while ― observed Izuku with interest. Mei tugged at Izuku's arm, excitedly discussing her next invention, while Ochako nudged him, grinning and reminding him that he would have to carry them again in the finals. Izuku smirked, feeling the heat flare briefly. He welcomed the challenge of the finals, declaring that the Lion's pride bows to no one. The stadium vibrated with cheers, the stage set for the battles ahead, and Izuku stood ready, his power a blazing sun over you. The U.A. Sports Festival Stadium thrummed with energy as the crowd's fervor surged, the first-year students regrouping after the electrifying cavalry battle. Izuku Midoriya stood among his classmates, his gym uniform slightly singed, the lion tattoo on his back pulsing faintly. His glasses were off, his green eyes blazing with pride, drawing both wary glances from competitors and awed stares from spectators. The 1 million point headband had secured his team's victory, but the weight of being the prime target only fueled his resolve. The field was a mosaic of trampled earth and melted ice, remnants of the chaotic battle, and the air buzzed with anticipation for the final event, the one-on-one tournament. Midnight strode onto the stage, her WHP snapping through the air, silencing the crowd. She announced the final event, a one-on-one tournament, where the top 16 from the cavalry battle would showcase their strength, strategy, and spirit. Although some had not given their all, she found their youthful spirit amusing. The matchups were randomized, and everyone was encouraged to check the board. The massive screen flickered, displaying the bracket. Izuku's name sat at the top, his first opponent, Itsuka Kendo from Class 1B. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, acknowledging Kendo's formidable big fist quirk and her sharp tactical mind. Izuku felt a faint smirk form on his lips, considering her a worthy test of his abilities. Present Mick's voice boomed from the commentary booth, nearly shaking the stands as he announced the exciting matchups. He highlighted the clash between Midoriya and Kendo, calling it a battle of titans. Aizawa, slouched in his seat with bandages peeking from his collar, groaned in response, warning Mike about his exuberance. He acknowledged Midoriya's overwhelming power but reminded everyone that Kendo was a real threat with her intellect and quirk. As the students dispersed to prepare, Izuku made his way toward the waiting area, his stride purposeful, heat trailing behind him like a cloak. The corridor was quiet, the distant roar of the crowd muffled by the concrete walls. Before he reached the prep room, a lanky figure stepped into his path, Toshinori Yagi, All Might's frail form, with earnest but hesitant eyes. Toshinori began to speak, requesting a moment of Izuku's time. Izuku stopped, his expression hardening, the air around him growing warmer. He expressed his impatience, urging Toshinori to speak quickly or not at all. Toshinori flinched but continued, raising his hands in a placating gesture. He acknowledged Izuku's distrust and praised his extraordinary power, emphasizing his longing to offer guidance to help him harness it for the greater good. Izuku narrowed his eyes, his voice sharp as he rejected Toshinori's offer. He declared himself the lion's sin of pride, forged by his own will, and insisted he needed no counsel from a fading star. He stepped closer, the heat radiating from him making Toshinori sweat, and warned him to step aside or face the consequences. Toshinori's shoulders sagged, but he stood firm, insisting he was not Izuku's enemy. He saw a hero in him but cautioned that pride could blind even the strongest. He pleaded for Izuku to consider his words. Izuku snapped, echoing his refusal in the corridor. He asserted that his path was his own and brushed past Toshinori, leaving him in a haze of lingering heat, worry etched into his gaunt face. Moments later, Izuku found himself in a secluded prep room, the door clicking shut behind him. The air was cool, a stark contrast to the warmth he exuded. Before he could settle, a knock sounded, and Shoto Todoroki entered, His heterochromatic eyes locked on Izuku with an intensity that matched his own. Todoroki closed the door and stated that they needed to talk. Izuku leaned against the wall, arms crossed, his tattoo pulsing faintly as he invited Todoroki to speak, though he warned that his patience was limited. Todoroki's jaw tightened, his left side frosting slightly as he revealed that he recognized Izuku as the strongest in their class, perhaps in the entire festival. He acknowledged Izuku's impressive performance in the cavalry battle but clarified that he was not there to praise him, he was there to declare his intent to surpass him. Izuku's smirk sharpened, his eyes glinting like embers as he challenged Todoroki's bold words. He questioned whether Todoroki believed his ice and fire could eclipse the sun and urged him to prove it. Todoroki stepped closer, undeterred, explaining that this was not just about power but personal stakes. He revealed that his father, Endeavor, expected him to be a perfect weapon, surpassing all might with only his fire. Rejecting that expectation, he vowed to win the tournament using his ice alone, determined to spite his father. He then turned the focus back to Izuku, questioning who he was and what drove him, as Izuku challenged everything Endeavor represented. Izuku's gaze fixed on Todoroki, the atmosphere in the room heating up as his pride surged. He declared himself as Izuku Midoriya, the lion son of pride, chosen by the sun itself. His ambition was clear: to be unmatched, to protect those under his care, and to forge a legacy that would burn eternally. He dismissed Todoroki's father's ambitions and All Might's legacy as mere fleeting sparks compared to his own flame. He challenged Todoroki to cast aside his doubts and embrace his full power, warning that without that, he would never be able to reach him. Todoroki's eyes widened, a flicker of fire igniting in his left pupil. He acknowledged that he had been holding back but insisted he would not use his father's fire. He aimed to defeat Izuku in his own way, to prove he was not a puppet. When he succeeded, he would show that he was more than just a shadow. Izuku laughed, a deep, resonant sound that filled the room. He welcomed the challenge but made it clear that the lion bows to no one, not even a storm. He urged Todoroki to bring his best or risk being consumed by the intensity of their rivalry. With that, he turned and strode out, leaving Todoroki enveloped in a haze of heat and determination, the air crackling with their unspoken competition. The stadium buzzed with excitement as Izuku entered the arena, the crowd's cheers crashing over him like a tidal wave. The concrete ring was surrounded by raised stands, every seat filled, with cameras flashing like stars. Across from him stood 𝐬𝐮𝐿 Kendo, her orange hair tied back, her stance confident yet cautious. Her hands were already enlarged, fists the size of boulders, and her eyes were sharp with tactical focus. The board above displayed their names. Midoriya vs. Kendo. Round present Mike announced the match with enthusiasm, his voice booming through the arena. He introduced Izuku Midoriya, the million-point marvel, and 𝐬𝐮𝐿 Kendo, Class 1BS strategic powerhouse, promising an exciting battle. Aizawa, however, sighed and rubbed his temples, counting Mick's outbursts and warning him to tone it down. He acknowledged Midoriya's raw power but noted Kendo's quick thinking and unique quirk made her a wild card. If she could outsmart him, she might have a chance. Mike, undeterred, continued to hype up the match, excitedly contrasting Kendo's giant fists with Midoriya's fiery nature. Midnight raised her WHP, laying down the rules: no weapons, no leaving the ring, and no lethal moves. She demanded they fight with honor or face detention for a month. With a signal to begin, the match was on. Kendo moved first, her enlarged fists swinging in a powerful arc. She declared that she wouldn't hold back. The ground trembled as her fists slammed down, aiming to pin Izuku against the arena's edge. Izuku dodged with fluid grace, his body a blur of heat and muscle. He welcomed the challenge, asserting that he would be insulted if she did hold back. He ducked under her next swing, feeling the air whistle as her fist grazed his hair. He noted her speed despite her size and decided to test her resolve. He lunged forward, aiming a palm strike at her midsection, heat radiating from his hand. Kendo twisted, blocking with her enlarged hand, the impact sending a shockwave through the arena. She acknowledged his strength but insisted she was more than just brawn, pivoting to slam both fists down like hammers. Izuku leaped back just in time, the concrete cracking where he had stood, dust rising in clouds. Kendo called out, complimenting his dodge while expressing her determination not to be outpaced. Izuku countered, his grin fierce, asserting that he wasn't running. He charged forward, heat flaring around him, sliding under her next strike and popping up behind her. He challenged her speed, unleashing a controlled wave of heat that pushed her back, her hair fluttering in the warm gust. The crowd roared, captivated by the clash of power and precision. Mike shouted that Kendo was holding her own, while Aizawa noted that Midoriya was testing her limits. Kendo was smart, but she needed a plan to keep up with his relentless pace. Breathing slightly, Kendo narrowed her eyes, accusing him of toying with her. She shrank her fists briefly before enlarging them again, launching a rapid flurry of punches. Izuku weaved through the barrage, his movements almost leisurely, heat shimmering around him. He clarified that he was honoring her by testing her mettle and urged her to show him the strength of Class 1B. He caught her wrist mid-swing, his grip firm but not harmful. After releasing her, he stepped back with a nod, acknowledging her impressive effort but insisting it wasn't enough. Kendo gritted her teeth, her mind racing. She realized she needed to outsmart him. Feinting a left punch, she swung her right fist low, aiming to trip him. Izuku leaped, flipping over her fist and landing with a thud that sent a pulse of heat through the arena. He praised her cleverness, affirming that the sun doesn't fall easily. She charged again, creating a smokescreen of dust with a powerful punch that shook the ground. She shouted that he should try dodging what he couldn't see, her fists sweeping through the haze. Izuku's senses, honed by his pride and power, caught her movement. He sidestepped, grabbing her arm and using her momentum to spin her toward the edge of the ring. She caught herself just before crossing the line, her fists shrinking as she steadied her breathing. It was a close call, and Mike nearly toppled his chair in excitement. Kendo was pulling out all the stops, but Midoriya was reading her like a book. He was a force to be reckoned with. Aizawa noted that Kendo's strategy was solid, but Midoriya's instincts were sharper. She was running out of options. Kendo, sweat beading on her forehead, grinned defiantly. She acknowledged Midoriya's skill but insisted she wasn't done yet. She enlarged both fists to their maximum size, slamming them together and creating a shockwave that rattled the arena. Izuku braced himself, heat flaring to disperse the force, but the move allowed Kendo a moment to reposition, circling him like a predator. Izuku acknowledged her spirit, noting that spirit alone wouldn't extinguish his flame. He raised a hand, and the air shimmered as a small, controlled sun formed above his palm, radiating intense heat. He hurled it at the ground between them, creating a barrier of scorching air that forced her back. Kendo shielded her face, her fists shrinking to normal size to avoid overheating. She laughed, despite herself, calling it unfair and likening him to a volcano. Izuku responded that a volcano bows to the sun, advancing through the heat haze with an overwhelming presence. He closed the distance, dodging her desperate punch and grabbing both her wrists, his grip firm but gentle. He commended her for fighting well but stated that it would end now. With a surge of strength, he spun her, pushing her gently but firmly toward the edge of the ring. She stumbled, her foot crossing the line just as she tried to catch herself. Midnight declared that Itsuka Kendo was out of bounds and that Izuku Midoriya advanced to the next round. The crowd erupted, a tidal wave of cheers and gasps. Kendo, breathing, straightened and offered Izuku a respectful nod, acknowledging his prowess. She admitted he was on another level. Izuku returned the nod, his expression softening but still proud. He praised her strength and encouraged her to keep burning bright. They shook hands, her grin genuine despite the loss. Mike exclaimed about the match, his voice cracking with excitement. Midoriya didn't just win, he dominated with style. Kendo had given him a run for his money, but that heat and power were impressive. Aizawa noted that Midoriya controlled the fight from start to finish. Kendo had pushed him, but his power and precision were too much. He would be a challenge for the rest of the tournament. As Izuku walked off the arena, the crowd's cheers followed him, a chorus of awe and anticipation. He felt the weight of their eyes, pro-heroes, students, and rivals like Todoroki and Bakugo watching from the stands. His pride swelled, but he tempered it, knowing the battles ahead would test him further. He was ready for whatever came next, his tattoo glowing faintly, signaling that his journey was just beginning. The 𝐒𝐮𝐦𝐸 Sports Festival arena pulsed with raw energy, the crowd's roars echoing through the packed stands. The first round of the one-on-one tournament had set the stage ablaze, with Izuku Midoriya's victory over 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 leaving spectators breathless. Now, the second match loomed, the massive screen above the field flashing the names. Eijiro Kirishima vs 𝗧𝗜𝗧𝗟𝗘. The air crackled with anticipation, the ground still scarred from prior battles, patches of melted concrete and scattered debris testament to the intensity of the day. Class 1A and 1B clustered in the stands, their eyes locked on the arena, where two titans of tenacity were about to collide. Midnight strutted to the center of the ring, her WHP snapping like a thunderclap, silencing the murmurs. She declared the start of round 2, introducing Eijiro Kirishima from Class 1A, the hardening hero, versus 𝗧𝗜𝗧𝗟𝗘 from Class 1B, the steel juggernaut. She emphasized that there would be no weapons, no stepping out of bounds, and no cheap shots, urging them to keep it fierce and fair. With a signal, she announced the match would begin. Present Mick's voice erupted from the commentary booth, nearly drowning out the crowd's cheers. He anticipated a slugfest, noting that Kirishima and 𝗧𝗜𝗧 were about to engage in a battle of grit and guts, both equipped with quirks that turned them into walking tanks. Aizawa, slouched beside him with bandages peeking from his collar, groaned audibly. Mike was at 19 outbursts, and Aizawa was not above gagging him. This match was pure endurance. Both competitors had similar quirks, Kirishima's hardening versus 𝗧𝗜𝗧's steel. It was less about strategy and more about who could take the most punishment. A long fight was expected. Mike hooped, dodging Aizawa's glare, and exclaimed that it was going to be long and loud, just how he liked it. The crowd was in for a treat as the two would bash each other into next week. In the arena, Kirishima and 𝗧𝗜𝗧 faced off, their stances reflecting raw determination. Kirishima's red hair gleamed under the stadium lights, his muscles tensing as his skin took on a jagged, rocky texture, activating his hardening quirk. 𝗧𝗜𝗧's gray hair caught the same light, his body shimmering as it transformed into gleaming steel, his eyes blazing with a grin that matched Kirishima's own. 𝗧𝗜𝗧 called out, ready to test Class 1 as best, flexing his metallic form. Kirishima laughed, his sharp teeth flashing, and declared he would show 1B what real toughness looked like. He slammed his fists together, the sound echoing like stone cracking, and charged. The crowd erupted as the two collided, Kirishima's hardened fist meeting 𝗧𝗜𝗧's steel-clad arm in a thunderous clash. Sparks flew, the impact sending a shockwave that kicked up dust. Kirishima roared with excitement, swinging again, his punch grazing 𝗧𝗜𝗧's shoulder as the steel teen dodged and countered with a swift jab to Kirishima's chest. 𝗧𝗜𝗧 grinned, his fist glancing off Kirishima's hardened torso, the blow resonating like a hammer on an anvil. They traded punches, each hit a testament to their durability, neither yielding an inch. In the Class 1A stands, Denki Kaminari leaned forward, eyes wide, marveling at Kirishima's all-out effort and the sparks flying. It was like watching two boulders smash into each other. Momo Yaoyorozu analyzed the fight, noting their nearly identical quirks but suggesting 𝗧𝗜𝗧's steel might have a slight edge in density, while Kirishima had heart. Mina Ishido bounced in her seat, urging Kirishima to show who was boss. 𝗀𝗃𝗃 grinned, likening the fight to two trucks crashing in slow motion, believing both were having the time of their lives. In the Class 1B section, Itsuka Kendo watched intently, arms crossed, confident that 𝗧𝗜𝗧 would win due to his relentless training since the USJ incident. Yosetsu Owaze nodded, acknowledging 𝗧𝗜𝗧's extra shine and the pride he carried for 1B. Nito Minoma lounged nearby, smirking and asserting that 𝗧𝗜𝗧 would show Class 1A that their so-called hardening was just a cheap knockoff. Pony Tsunatori sighed, urging everyone to enjoy the fight instead of arguing. Back in the arena, Kirishima ducked a powerful swing from 𝗧𝗜𝗧 and retaliated with an uppercut that connected with his opponent's jaw. He teased 𝗧𝗜𝗧, claiming he was just getting warmed up. 𝗧𝗜𝗧 laughed, shaking off the blow, and declared himself molten as he lunged, tackling Kirishima to the ground. The impact shook the arena as they grappled, rolling across the concrete, each trying to pin the other, their quirks making them immovable forces. Present Mike shouted from his chair, comparing their wrestling to two rhinos going at it, marveling at the intensity of the match. Aizawa narrowed his eyes, dryly warning Mike to sit down before he tied him to the chair. He noted that they were evenly matched, but Kirishima's stamina might give him a slight advantage. 𝗧𝗧𝗟𝗘's steel was denser but heavier, making it a war of attrition. The crowd leaned forward as Kirishima broke free, springing to his feet and landing a solid kick to 𝗧𝗧𝗟's side. The steel teen skidded back, grinning undeterred. He charged, his fist glowing faintly from the heat of friction, and slammed it into Kirishima's chest. The redhead staggered, his hardening absorbing the blow, but he felt the impact. Kirishima was taking hits like a champion, and Ochako Uraraka cheered him on, urging him to show his 1A spirit. 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫 noted Kirishima's manliness but acknowledged that 𝗧𝗧𝗟𝗃 was not giving an inch, making it a close contest. Izuku Midoriya, seated nearby, observed the battle with keen interest, recognizing that Kirishima was fighting with heart, while 𝗧𝗧𝗟𝗃's resolve was equally fierce. This was a battle of wills as much as quirks. 𝗧𝗧𝗟𝗃 feinted left, then swung right, catching Kirishima's arm. He exclaimed that he had him, twisting to throw Kirishima toward the edge of the ring. Kirishima planted his feet, his hardening deepening, and pushed back, their locked arms trembling with effort. He grunted, asserting that he wasn't going down easily. Breaking free, he landed a double-fisted strike that sent 𝗧𝗧𝗟𝗃 stumbling, the clang echoing like a bell. The commentator shouted in excitement, nearly toppling his mic stand, amazed by Kirishima's powerful swing while noting that 𝗧𝗧𝗟𝗃 was still standing. He remarked on their impressive durability, comparing them to tanks. Aizawa, observing from the sidelines, noted the exhaustion in his voice as he explained that both fighters were pushing their quirks to the limit. He pointed out that while Kirishima's hardening was versatile, 𝗧𝗧𝗟𝗃's steel had a slight edge in raw durability, making it a battle of endurance. In the stands, Juzo Hananuki leaned forward, his quirk idle but his mind racing. He believed 𝗧𝗧𝗟𝗃 had the advantage if he could maintain the pressure, acknowledging Kirishima's toughness but asserting that steel didn't crack as easily as rock. Monoma chimed in, smirking as he predicted that Class 1A was about to learn they weren't invincible, confident that 𝗧𝗧𝗟𝗃 would outlast Kirishima. Kendo rolled her eyes at Monoma's taunts, urging him to cheer for 𝗧𝗧𝗟𝗃 without the mockery. As the fight continued, time seemed to stretch, with Kirishima and 𝗧𝗧𝗟𝗃 trading blows, each hit a testament to their unyielding spirits. Kirishima's hardening began to show faint cracks, his breathing heavier, while 𝗧𝗧𝗟𝗃's steel gleamed with scratches but held firm. The crowd was on its feet, the stadium shaking with cheers. Katsuki Bakugo shouted encouragement, urging Kirishima to dig deep and not let 𝗧𝗧𝗟𝗃 outlast him. Tenya Ida adjusted his glasses, reminding Bakugo that yelling wouldn't help, as Kirishima was giving his all in this test of endurance. 𝗧𝗧𝗟𝗃 ducked a wild swing and countered with a knee to Kirishima's gut, expressing respect for his opponent's toughness. He followed with a spinning back fist that caught Kirishima's shoulder, sending him skidding toward the edge. Kirishima caught himself, grinning through gritted teeth, determined to prove his toughness. He charged, tackling 𝗧𝗧𝗟𝗃 in a collision that felt like a meteor strike. They hit the ground, rolling and trying to overpower each other, their quirks straining under the effort. Mina squealed in excitement, clutching Ochako's arm, captivated by the fierce battle that felt like a brotherly rivalry. Shoto Todoroki observed quietly, noting that their resolve was equal, but one would have to break. In the arena, Kirishima landed a solid punch to 𝗧𝗧𝗟𝗃's chest, who grunted but retaliated with a headbutt that made Kirishima reel. 𝗧𝗧𝗟𝗃 laughed, wiping sweat from his brow, his steel skin gleaming, and encouraged Kirishima to keep going. Kirishima chuckled, his hardening flickering but holding strong, expressing his enjoyment of the fight. He swung again, his fist meeting 𝗧𝗧𝗟𝗃's raised arm, the clash sending a shockwave that cracked the concrete beneath them. The commentator exclaimed about the destruction of the arena, declaring it the manliest fight he had ever seen. Aizawa, with a deadpan expression, noted that they were both reaching their limits, with Kirishima's hardening starting to weaken while 𝗧𝗧𝗟𝗃's stamina was being tested. The fight dragged on, the crowd breathless as the two titans refused to yield. Kirishima's punches grew slower, his hardening showing hairline fractures, while 𝗧𝗧𝗟𝗃's movements became heavier under the weight of his steel. Finally, 𝗧𝗧𝗟𝗃 saw an opening when Kirishima's guard dropped for a split second. He delivered a massive uppercut that sent Kirishima staggering back, his foot crossing the ring's boundary. The referee declared Kirishima out of bounds, announcing that 𝗧𝗧𝗟𝗃 advanced to the next round. The stadium erupted, Class 1B leaping to their feet in deafening cheers, while Class 1A sat stunned, watching Kirishima catch his breath as his hardening faded. 𝗧𝗧𝗟𝗃, breathing, offered a hand, his steel skin reverting to normal, acknowledging the tough fight. Kirishima grinned, accepting the hand and pulling himself up, expressing his enjoyment of the match and his determination to win next time. 𝗧𝗧𝗟𝗃 laughed, their handshake firm, a bond forged in battle. The commentators screamed about the match, declaring 𝗧𝗧𝗟𝗃's upset victory while praising both fighters as heroes. Aizawa noted that 𝗧𝗧𝗟𝗃 won by pacing himself better, while Kirishima had pushed hard but reached his quirk's limits first, emphasizing the lesson learned for both. In the stands of Class 1B, Monoma clapped slowly, a venomous smirk on his face. He taunted Class 1A, remarking on their hero's defeat at the hands of 1B's superior strength. His voice echoed, drawing glares from the members of Class 1. Kendo, unable to contain her frustration, reprimanded Monoma for his comments, insisting that 𝗧𝗧𝗟𝗃 had won fairly and deserved respect. Despite the loss, Class 1A remained supportive. Ochako expressed her admiration for Kirishima, emphasizing that he had given his all. Ida echoed her sentiments, stating that 𝗧𝗧𝗟𝗃 had earned his victory through honorable combat. 𝗧𝗱 remarked on the intensity of the match, confident that Kirishima would return stronger. Izuku observed quietly, his eyes reflecting respect for both fighters. He recognized Kirishima's unyielding spirit and acknowledged 𝗧𝗧𝗟𝗃 as a worthy rival, noting that the tournament was only becoming more competitive. As Kirishima and 𝗧𝗧𝗟𝗃 exited the arena, the crowd continued to cheer. The two shared a fist bump, their laughter resonating in the air. The atmosphere was charged with excitement for the upcoming battles, and the festival shone brighter than ever. The 𝐻 Sports Festival arena buzzed with restless energy as the crowd anticipated the third round of the one-on-one tournament. The remnants of previous matches, cracked concrete and scattered debris, marked the arena like a testament to the fierce competition. The massive screen displayed the next matchup, Yuga Aoyama vs Hitoshi Shinso. The stands filled with spectators buzzed with speculation, while the students of Class 1A and 1B observed in silence, their eyes fixed on the arena below. Though no words were exchanged, their expressions conveyed a range of emotions, curiosity, tension, and determination. Midnight entered the ring, her WHP cracking sharply to command silence. Her sultry yet authoritative voice resonated throughout the stadium as she announced the upcoming match. Aoyama, the dazzling hero from Class 1A, would face Shinso, the enigmatic student from Class 1C. Midnight set the rules, emphasizing the importance of honor and flair in their fight. In the commentary booth, Present Mike leaned forward, his voice vibrant yet slightly restrained. He discussed Aoyama's flashy quirk and Shinso's unpredictable nature, hinting at the potential for an exciting match. Aizawa, visibly exhausted, warned Mike to keep his commentary in check, noting the straightforward nature of Aoyama's quirk compared to Shinso's more complex abilities. On the arena floor, both students stood in their gym uniforms, Aoyama's blonde hair gleaming under the lights. He struck a theatrical pose, his navel glowing faintly as he prepared to unleash his quirk. With confidence, he declared his intention to dazzle his opponent with his powerful navel laser. In contrast, Shinso maintained a calm demeanor, his wild purple hair framing a sharp, calculating expression. He appeared relaxed, but his eyes betrayed a keen awareness of the situation. He challenged Aoyama's bravado, questioning whether he could truly back up his flashy claims. Undeterred, Aoyama responded with enthusiasm, assuring 𝗀𝐿 of his unmatched brilliance. He unleashed a beam of light from his navel, the shimmering energy cutting through the air toward his opponent. The crowd gasped as the radiant beam illuminated the arena. 𝗀𝐿 effortlessly sidestepped the attack, the laser narrowly missing him and scorching the concrete behind. He acknowledged Aoyama's display with a dry comment, urging him to try again rather than merely putting on a show. Class 1A watched intently, the atmosphere thick with focus. Mina's eyes widened at Aoyama's flair, while Izuku analyzed the match, keenly observing both fighters. Class 1B leaned forward, Kendo studying 𝗀𝐿's composed demeanor with furrowed brows. The tension in the air was palpable, charged with unspoken anticipation. Aoyama twirled gracefully, firing another laser in a sweeping arc. He proclaimed that 𝗀𝐿 could not escape his brilliance, his voice filled with theatrical gusto. The beam carved a glowing path, forcing 𝗀𝐿 to duck and roll, his gym uniform collecting dust as he sprang back to his feet, ready for the next move in this exhilarating battle. 𝗀𝐿 brushed off his sleeve, narrowing his eyes as he regarded Aoyama. He remarked that it seemed Aoyama was more enamored with his own shine than with the idea of winning. He questioned Aoyama's motivations for wanting to be a hero, suggesting that perhaps it was merely to look good. Aoyama paused for a brief moment, his smile wavering, but he quickly regained his composure with a flourish. He proclaimed that he shone to inspire, insisting that heroes must dazzle to uplift spirits. With that, he unleashed a rapid burst of smaller lasers, each one aimed precisely to corner 𝗀𝐿. He declared that words could not dim his light. 𝗀𝐿 dodged gracefully, weaving through the beams with ease. He taunted Aoyama, suggesting that he was merely trying to convince himself of his own inspiration. He probed deeper, asking about Aoyama's true motivations, whether it was fame, attention, or perhaps a fear of being ordinary. The crowd murmured, sensing the tension. Aoyama's lasers continued to flash, illuminating the arena, but 𝗀𝐿's words seemed to cut deeper. Aoyama's next shot went slightly astray, singeing the ground near 𝗀𝐿's feet. Frustrated, Aoyama insisted that 𝗀𝐿 was speaking nonsense, asserting that his radiance was his purpose and that 𝗀𝐿 could not understand. 𝗀𝐿 smirked, his eyes glinting with insight. He suggested that Aoyama was afraid of fading into the background, which was why he always posed and sparkled. He questioned what would remain of Aoyama without his glitter. Aoyama's eyes widened, and his posture stiffened. He shouted for silence as his navel glowed brighter, the air humming with energy as he unleashed a massive laser, the most powerful yet, aimed directly at 𝗀𝐿. The crowd leaned forward, gasps rippling through the stands as the beam surged forward. 𝗀𝐿 dove, rolling under the laser, feeling the heat graze his back. He rose unflinched, his voice calm yet relentless. He complimented Aoyama's shot but pressed him further, asking if he was afraid to confront the truth. Frustration bubbled in Aoyama as he cried out, insisting that he was a hero and that his light would guide the world. He fired again, a rapid volley of beams, each one faster and more desperate. The lasers crisscrossed the arena, forcing 𝗀𝐿 to leap and dodge, his movements precise but increasingly strained. Mick's voice broke the tension, noting Aoyama's escalating intensity and 𝗀𝐿's impressive dodging skills, while Aizawa observed that 𝗀𝐿 was playing a different game, pointing out that Aoyama was letting 𝗀𝐿 get under his skin, which was dangerous. The stands of 1A and 1B reflected the arena's intensity. Ochako clenched her hands, her gaze fixed on Aoyama's strained expression. Katsuki's scowl deepened as he sensed Aoyama's faltering focus. In 1B, Tetsutetsu tightened his fists, recognizing 𝗀𝐿's calm demeanor, while Nito's smirk grew, though he remained silent. Aoyama advanced, his lasers a dazzling display, but his shots became more erratic as 𝗀𝐿's words dug deeper. He declared that 𝗀𝐿 could not outshine him with taunts, spinning to fire a spiraling beam that lit up the arena like a starburst, forcing 𝗀𝐿 to take cover behind a chunk of broken concrete. Aoyama insisted that his brilliance was eternal. 𝗀𝐿 emerged from cover, his voice steady as he questioned Aoyama's claims. He suggested that Aoyama's light might be a mask, asking who inspired him. He stepped closer, locking eyes with Aoyama and urging him to admit his fear of being forgotten. Aoyama's breath hitched, his confidence wavering. He stammered that 𝗀𝐻𝐿 knew nothing and fired again, but the beam was weaker, merely grazing 𝗀𝐻𝐿's shoulder. The purple-haired teen remained unfazed, his expression steady. 𝗀𝐻𝐿 acknowledged that he understood enough, pointing out that Aoyama was fighting to prove something without knowing what it was. He pressed Aoyama to consider the purpose of all his flash if he did not truly believe in it. Aoyama's face twisted in frustration, his confidence fraying as he shouted that he believed in his light. He unleashed another massive laser, the brightest yet, a blinding torrent aimed straight at 𝗀𝐻𝐿. The crowd held its breath, certain this would be the decisive moment. 𝗀𝐻𝐿 stood firm, his gaze unwavering as he asked Aoyama if he truly believed. The beam halted inches from him, Aoyama's hands shaking and his face pale as he reached his limit, pain coursing through him. 𝗀𝐻𝐿's voice dropped to a whisper, urging Aoyama to share the pain he was hiding. Aoyama's eyes widened, his mouth opening to retort. He started to express his thoughts, but his voice faltered as 𝗀𝐻𝐿's quirk took hold. The laser fizzled, and Aoyama froze, his expression blank and his body slackening. 𝗀𝐻𝐿 spoke softly, his voice carrying an eerie calm, instructing Aoyama to walk out of the ring. Aoyama turned, his movements mechanical, stepping over the boundary line, his gym uniform scuffed and singed. The crowd gasped, a stunned silence falling before erupting into shocked murmurs. Class 1, as students stared, wide-eyed, their disbelief palpable. Class 1B's expressions mirrored that shock, though Kendo displayed a flicker of pride, tempered by surprise at 𝗀𝐻𝐿's strategy. Midnight declared the outcome, her WHP cracking as she announced that Yuga Aoyama had left the ring and that Hitoshi 𝗀𝐻𝐿 advanced to the next round. The stadium erupted into chaos, cheers and gasps mingling as 𝗀𝐻𝐿 stood, his expression unchanged, his purple hair ruffling in the breeze. Aoyama blinked, awareness returning, and he stumbled, clutching his stomach, confusion and defeat etched on his face. He murmured to himself, struggling to comprehend what had just happened. 𝗀𝐻𝐿 glanced at him, his tone neutral but not unkind, acknowledging Aoyama's effort while pointing out that he had let 𝗀𝐻𝐿 in. He turned and walked off the arena, leaving Aoyama to process his loss. Mick's voice shattered the stunned silence, his shock genuine as he exclaimed about 𝗀𝐻𝐿's unexpected victory. He noted how Aoyama had seemed to have the upper hand with his lasers, but 𝗀𝐻𝐿's brainwashing quirk had come out of nowhere, catching everyone off guard. Aizawa leaned back, his voice low as he commented on the match. He noted that 𝗀𝐻𝐿 had played the long game, baiting Aoyama into talking, exploiting his confidence as a weakness. While Aoyama's lasers were impressive, his mind had not been prepared for such a psychological battle. The stands remained silent as both Class 1A and Class 1B processed the upset. Aoyama trudged back to his classmates, his head low, while 𝗀𝐻𝐿 returned to Class 1C, his calm demeanor hiding a flicker of satisfaction. The crowd's roar faded to a hum, the arena charged with the promise of more surprises as the tournament stakes continued to rise. The 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐴 Sports Festival arena pulsed with frenetic energy, the crowd's cheers filling every corner of the stadium. The third round had left spectators reeling, Hitoshi 𝗀𝐻𝐿's psychological victory over Yuga Aoyama a stark reminder of the tournament's unpredictability. Now, the fourth round loomed, the massive screen above the field blazing with the names. Momo Yaoyorozu vs Mina Ishido. The stands, packed to capacity, buzzed with anticipation, the air thick with the scent of scorched concrete and lingering tension from prior battles. Class 1A and Class 1B sat in their sections, their silence a testament to their focus, eyes locked on the arena where two of Class 1's brightest were about to clash. The ring itself bore the scars of earlier fights, cracked stone, blackened patches, and scattered debris, a battleground ready for another spectacle. Midnight strutted to the center, her WHP cracking like a thunderbolt, commanding attention. Her voice, rich with a mix of allure and authority, echoed through the stands as she announced the fourth round. Momo Yaoyorozu from Class 1A, the creation genius with an intellect sharper than a blade, would face Mina Ishido, one, as acid-wielding dynamo known for her unpredictability. She declared that no weapons were allowed except what they could create with their quirks, and urged them to fight with passion and pride. In the commentary booth, 𝐼𝐼 leaned into his microphone, his enthusiasm barely contained as he anticipated the match. He noted that 𝐻𝐼𝐻𝗧𝗟 possessed both brains and an arsenal limited only by her imagination, while 𝐻𝐿𝐻𝗧𝗏 Acid was a wild card at any range. Izuku, slouched beside him, sighed heavily, keeping track of Mick's outbursts. He pointed out that 𝐻𝐼𝐻𝗧𝗏's creation quirk provided endless options, but she would need time to execute them. Meanwhile, 𝐻𝐻𝗧𝗏's agility and acid made her a formidable opponent up close and dangerous from afar, setting the stage for a true test of 𝐻𝐼𝐻𝗧𝗏's adaptability. On the arena floor, Momo and Mina faced off, their blue and white gym uniforms slightly rumpled from the day's intensity. Momo stood tall, her dark hair pulled into a high ponytail, her expression calm but her eyes sharp with calculation. Her hands rested at her sides, already glowing faintly as her creation quirk primed. Mina, opposite her, bounced on her toes, her pink skin gleaming under the stadium lights, her eyes sparkling with mischief. A thin sheen of acid glistened on her palms as she prepared for the match. Mina challenged Momo with a bright voice, expressing her excitement for the battle ahead. Momo responded with a composed smile, acknowledging Mina's enthusiasm while indicating that she would be crafting a strategy to keep her grounded. The stage was set for a worthy contest. Mina grinned, her sharp teeth flashing with excitement. She charged forward, her movements fluid and unpredictable, flinging a spray of low-potency acid in a wide arc. The liquid hissed as it hit the concrete, creating slick patches that shimmered ominously. Momo sidestepped with honed reflexes, raising her arm as a metal shield materialized from her forearm. The acid splashed harmlessly against it, sizzling but leaving no mark. Momo acknowledged the bold opening, her voice steady as she expressed her preparedness. She pivoted, her other hand glowing, conjuring a bow staff that caught the light. With a precise swing, she aimed to push Mina back and create space. Mina cartwheeled away, her agility almost balletic, laughing as she complimented Momo's weapon. She clapped her hands, releasing a burst of thicker acid that arced toward Momo like a liquid W, challenging her to dodge. Momo's eyes narrowed, her mind racing. She dropped the staff and conjured a pair of insulated boots, slipping them on with fluid motion. The acid splashed around her, hissing against the concrete but sliding off her protected soles. Momo advanced, acknowledging Mina's cleverness while asserting her understanding of the limits of her opponent's quirk. Mina's grin remained unwavering as she crouched, pressing her hands to the ground. A pool of acid spread outward, more viscous than before, bubbling and eating into the concrete to create a treacherous moat around her. She taunted Momo, challenging her to approach. The crowd leaned forward, murmurs rippling through the stands as the arena transformed into a battlefield of strategy and spontaneity. Class 1A watched with bated breath, while Class 1B students were equally engrossed, noting Mina's unorthodox approach. Momo assessed the acid pool, her mind racing with calculations. She recognized the barrier tactic as bold but counterable. Her arm glowed as she materialized a grappling hook launcher, firing it over the acid to embed it into a chunk of debris at the arena's edge. With a tug, she swung herself across, landing cleanly on the other side, her boots shielding her from stray splashes. She acknowledged Mina's strength while asserting her ability to navigate the situation. Mina's eyes sparkled with delight as she prepared to unleash more acid, flinging a series of denser globs aimed to keep Momo moving. She declared her intent to turn the arena into her playground, creating sizzling hazards that forced Momo to weave and dodge, her shield raised to deflect the worst of it. Momo's breath quickened, her focus unbroken as she recognized Mina's ability to force her to adapt. She conjured a lightweight net, its fibers reinforced, and tossed it toward Mina, aiming to entangle her while challenging her to handle restraint. Mina dove under the net, sliding across her own acid with practiced ease. She retaliated with a high-pressure acid spray, aiming for Momo's legs to disrupt her footing and challenge her agility. Momo leaped, her boots glowing as she conjured thin stilts to elevate herself above the spray. Balancing expertly, She acknowledged Mina's impressive improvisation while revealing her own planning. She dismantled the stilts and conjured a small cannon, its barrel gleaming as she prepared to fire a RBB projectile aimed to push Mina toward the ring's edge. Mina ducked the projectile, which thudded against the arena wall. She expressed her awe and defiance, clapping her hands to release a cloud of acidic mist that obscured her movements, challenging Momo to find her in the swirling haze. The crowd gasped as the mist enveloped Mina, creating a living veil. The commentator noted Mina's unexpected tactics, while Aizawa observed the situation with sharp focus, recognizing that Mina's improvisation was forcing Momo to rethink her approach. However, he remained confident in Momo's intellect. Momo stood still, her senses straining as she assessed the smokescreen. She acknowledged its cleverness but remained determined. Her arm glowed as she materialized a handheld fan, its blades whirring to disperse the mist. As the haze cleared, Mina lunged, her hands coated in a sticky acid she had never used before, aiming to grab Momo's shield and corrode it. Momo twisted, letting the shield dissolve, and conjured a pair of insulated gloves in its place. She grabbed Mina's wrists, the gloves protecting her from the acid. Momo acknowledged Mina's surprises with a calm but strained voice, asserting that she still had options. With a swift motion, she pushed Mina back, releasing her and conjuring a spring-loaded net launcher, firing it to trap Mina against the ground. Mina rolled, narrowly avoiding the net, and sprang up, her breath heaving but her grin fierce. She found the challenge exhilarating and declared that she was far from finished. Spinning, she flung a spiral of acid in a wide arc, a move she had never practiced but felt instinctively right, the liquid curving toward Momo's flank. Momo's eyes widened, and she conjured a reinforced umbrella, its canopy deflecting the acid. She complimented Mina's creativity while advancing through the sizzling droplets, revealing her knowledge of chemical properties. Momo scattered a neutralizing powder to dull Mina's acid patches, creating safe footing and preparing to close the distance. Mina's eyes widened, her mind racing with excitement. She acknowledged Momo's skill while backpedaling, attempting another untested move by clapping her hands to create a burst of acid bubbles, each one popping with a corrosive hiss, aimed to disorient Momo. Momo ducked, her reflexes sharp, and conjured a gas mask to shield herself from the fumes. She recognized Mina's innovation but declared her intention to end the match. Charging forward, her arm glowing, she produced a pair of bolas, their weights spinning as she hurled them at Mina's legs. The bolas wrapped around Mina, tripping her as she hit the ground, her acid sizzling harmlessly against the concrete. Momo declared her victory, her voice firm yet kind, and conjured a long pole to gently pin Mina, preventing her from rising. She urged Mina to yield, praising her brilliant fight. Mina struggled, her acid attempting to corrode the pole, but Momo conjured a second pole, reinforced with a non-corrosive alloy. With a laugh, Mina conceded, admitting that Momo had outsmarted her and expressing her enjoyment of the match. Midnight declared the outcome, announcing that Mina Ishido was pinned and yielded, allowing Momo Yaoyorozu to advance to the next round. The crowd erupted in cheers and gasps, filling the stadium with excitement. Mina rolled to her feet, brushing off her uniform, and grinned at Momo, acknowledging her as a formidable opponent. Momo smiled back, her composure softening, and expressed her admiration for Mina's extraordinary improvisation. She offered her hand, and Mina took it, pulling her into a quick, playful hug that drew a surprised laugh from Momo. The commentator, Mike, expressed his awe at the match, highlighting Mina's whirlwind of moves and Momo's strategic brilliance. Aizawa, observing the arena, noted that Momo's preparation and adaptability had won the day, while Mina's spontaneity had been impressive but ultimately insufficient. The stands remained silent as Class 1A and 1B absorbed the intensity of the battle. Ochako's eyes shone with pride for both fighters, while Izuku nodded, impressed by Momo's precision and Mina's creativity. Kendo regarded Mina with a flicker of respect. The arena vibrated with the crowd's energy, setting the stage for the upcoming battles, each clash raising the stakes higher. The WhatIf Sports Festival arena pulsed with fervor, the crowd's cheers a thunderous symphony resonating through the packed stands. Momo Yaoyorozu's calculated victory over Mina Ishido had left the audience breathless, showcasing the triumph of intellect over spontaneity. Now, the fifth round loomed, the massive screen above the arena displaying the names, Denki Kaminari vs. Ibara Shiozaki. The field bore the marks of previous battles, pitted concrete, charred patches, and scattered rubble, each scar telling a story of grit and glory. Class 1A and 1B sat in their sections, their silence a canvas of anticipation, eyes locked on the ring where a clash of electricity and vines was about to unfold. The air crackled with the promise of Kaminari's quirk, tinged with an undercurrent of intrigue as if the arena sensed a surprise brewing. Midnight strode to the center, her WP slicing the air with a sharp crack, silencing the murmurs. Her voice, a blend of authority and excitement, echoed across the stadium as she announced the fifth round. Denki Kaminari from Class 1A, the electrifying trickster, would face Ibara Shiozaki from Class 1B, the serene vine maiden. Midnight outlined the rules: no weapons except what their quirks provided, no stepping out of bounds, and no underhanded tactics. She urged them to fight with honor and zeal, signaling the start of the match. In the commentary booth, Present Mike leaned forward, his voice filled with excitement. He remarked that this was going to be an intense match, noting Kaminari's electric energy and Shiozaki's formidable vines. Aizawa, appearing tired and wrapped in bandages, responded that while Kaminari's quirk was powerful, it was also unpredictable and overuse could be dangerous. He pointed out that Shiozaki's vines were precise but that she could be vulnerable if Kaminari disrupted her control. The match would hinge on evasion and seizing opportunities. On the arena floor, Kaminari and Shiozaki stood ready in their gym uniforms, the blue and white fabric slightly rumpled from the day's events. Kaminari's blonde hair, marked with a black lightning bolt, shimmered under the lights. He wore a wide grin, but his eyes were sharp with focus. Sparks flickered at his fingertips, hinting at his power. Opposite him, Shiozaki's green hair flowed gracefully, her expression calm yet determined, hands clasped as if in prayer. Vines coiled at her feet, poised to strike. Kaminari playfully challenged Shiozaki, his usual flirtatious tone replaced by a teasing edge. He bounced on his toes, inviting her to make the first move. Shiozaki narrowed her eyes, her voice steady as she warned him that her vines would bind his recklessness and hoped this contest would strengthen his resolve. With a swift motion, she summoned her vines, which surged toward Kaminari like a living wave, aiming to ensnare him. Kaminari dodged with surprising agility, a spark of electricity trailing behind him as he sidestepped the approaching vines. He quipped about their impressive speed, evading another tendril with ease. Raising a hand, he released a low-voltage pulse that crackled against the vines, singeing their tips but not enough to sever them. The crowd leaned in, captivated by Kaminari's unexpected focus. Class 1A watched in silence, with Ochako Uraraka's eyes wide in surprise. Class 1B students were equally engrossed, Itsuka Kendo observing Shiozaki's controlled assault with a furrowed brow. The atmosphere was charged with anticipation. Could Kaminari outmaneuver the vine-wielding contender? Shiozaki maintained her serene demeanor, though determination glinted in her eyes. She acknowledged Kaminari's agility but asserted that evasion alone would not suffice. Her vines split, forming a lattice that sought to corner him against the arena's boundary. She declared that her faith guided her vines, and they would not waver. Kaminari cartwheeled away, his grin unwavering as he devised a strategy. He feigned a stumble, allowing a vine to graze his arm, prompting gasps from the crowd. He feigned panic, commenting on the speed of the vines while releasing a stronger pulse that scorched a cluster, causing their ends to curl. Shiozaki's expression tightened as she summoned new, thicker vines, her voice steady yet probing as she questioned Kaminari's motivations. He laughed off her inquiry, insisting he was simply there to enjoy himself while keeping an eye on the ring's edge. He released a burst of electricity at the ground, creating a cloud of dust to obscure his movements, all while keeping Shiozaki engaged in conversation. As the dust swirled, Shiozaki's senses heightened. She recognized Kaminari's trick and sent a wave of vines through the cloud, their thorns glinting as they aimed to sweep him out of bounds. The crowd held its breath, anticipating the vine's impact. Kaminari emerged from the dust, rolling to the side with his grin intact. He lightheartedly commented on the weight of judgment while executing precise movements. He targeted a cluster of vines with a jolt of electricity, reducing them to brittle remnants. With a playful demeanor, he darted forward, staying just out of reach and masking his calculated path toward the center of the ring. Mick's voice broke through the tension, filled with surprise as he noted Kaminari's impressive dodging skills. Despite the overwhelming presence of the vines, he was skillfully navigating the arena, leaving everyone to wonder if he was truly strategizing in the heat of battle. Aizawa narrowed his eyes, his tone dry as he observed the match. Mike was at 30, and he noted that while Shiizaki's vines were diamante, she was overextending. Kaminari was cleverly baiting her. Shiizaki's vines surged once more, forming a cage-like structure, their thorns glinting ominously as they closed in. She declared that Kaminari's antics would not save him and urged him to surrender to the embrace of her vines for a clean end. The vines tightened, aiming to trap Kaminari and drag him over the boundary line. Kaminari's grin widened, his eyes sparkling with mischief. He leaped, twisting midair to avoid the vines, landing perilously close to the ring's edge. The crowd gasped, fearing he had miscalculated, but Kaminari winked at Shiizaki, confident in his strategy. He released a controlled shockwave, electricity spreading across the ground and singeing the base of her vines, forcing them to retract slightly. Shiizaki's brow furrowed, her composure beginning to crack. She expressed her frustration, questioning whether Kaminari was taking the contest seriously. Her vines lashed out faster now, aiming to trip him out of bounds. Kaminari stumbled deliberately, allowing a vine to graze his ankle, drawing another gasp from the crowd. He exaggerated his earnestness, claiming he was super serious while rolling away with fluid movements, firing a pinpoint jolt at the vine's root, charring it. His eyes flicked to the boundary, mapping the arena's layout in his mind. Almost there. The silent stands of 1A and 1B reflected the mounting tension. Katsuki Bakugo scowled, sensing Kaminari's unusual focus, while Momo Yaoyorozu analyzed his tactics with narrowed eyes. In 1B, Tetsu clenched his fists, impressed by Shiizaki's control but wary of Kaminari's evasiveness. The crowd's murmurs grew, sensing a shift in the battle's tide. Shiizaki pressed her advantage, her vines forming a spiraling vortex, thorns glinting as they swept toward Kaminari from all angles. She declared that his games would end there, asserting that her vines would bind his folly. The vortex tightened, a green maelstrom aimed to trap him and force him out. Kaminari's grin remained, but his eyes sharpened as his plan crystallized. He dove through a gap in the vines, his body low, and released a sudden, high-voltage burst at the ground beneath Shiizaki. The electricity surged, creating a crackling field that disrupted her vine's roots, causing them to falter. He sprinted toward her, his movements now precise. Shiizaki's eyes widened as she hesitated, redirecting her vines to block him. She questioned his daring approach, insisting he could not breach her sanctuary. She sent a wave of vines to intercept him, their thorns aimed to push him back. Kaminari dodged, weaving through the vines with a smirk. He fired another jolt, targeting the vine's bases, forcing them to retract further. He was close now, closer than Shiizaki expected, his plan hinging on her underestimating him. He taunted her, questioning if she ever wondered what happened when one got too cocky. She froze, her instincts urging her to respond, but she caught herself. She insisted that his taunts were empty, her voice steady but her vines slowing, her focus divided. Her faith, she claimed, was unshakable. Kaminari challenged her, questioning her focus on him. He feigned a stumble, allowing a vine to wrap around his arm, the crowd gasping as it tightened. He pretended to despair, but his free hand sparked, a low hum building. Shiizaki's vines tightened, pulling him toward the boundary. She declared that his deception would end, urging him to step out and accept defeat. The vines dragged him closer to the line, the crowd holding its breath, certain Kaminari was done. Kaminari's grin flashed, his eyes gleaming with cunning. He countered her accusation of deception, unleashing a massive shockwave, the electricity surging through the vine binding him and traveling along its length to Shiozaki. The charge stunned her nerves, freezing her vines as she gasped, her control slipping. Kaminari broke free, sprinting toward her and guiding her over the boundary line just as her vines faltered. Midnight declared the outcome, her eyes wide with shock as she announced that Ibra Shiozaki had crossed the boundary and Denki Kaminari advanced to the next round. The stadium erupted into chaos, cheers and gasps mingling as Kaminari stood, breathing, his grin triumphant but his body trembling from the effort. Shiozaki stumbled, her vines retracting, her expression a mix of disbelief and respect. She acknowledged that he had outwitted her, admitting she had underestimated his cunning. Kaminari scratched the back of his head, his grin softening. He acknowledged Shiozaki's impressive skills, noting that her vines were quite intimidating. He offered her a hand, which she accepted with a firm grip, a faint smile crossing her lips. Shiozaki recognized Kaminari's true heart and admitted that she had misjudged him. She wished him a brighter path in the upcoming rounds. Mick's voice boomed with astonishment as he commented on Kaminari's unexpected tactics, praising his cleverness in deceiving Shiozaki. Aizawa leaned back, grudgingly impressed, explaining how Kaminari had faked incompetence to lure Shiozaki into overcommitting. While she controlled the field, he had managed to control the pace of the match, showcasing his intelligence. The stands of 1A and 1B were silent, their eyes wide with shock and awe. Izuku Midoriya's gaze flickered with approval, recognizing Kaminari's strategic thinking, while Nito Monoma's usual smirk faltered, his taunts silenced by the surprising turn of events. The crowd's roar filled the arena, setting the stage for more unpredictable battles. Kaminari walked off, his grin electric, ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. The Sports Festival arena thrummed with energy, the crowd's cheers creating a tidal wave of excitement under the blazing stadium lights. The fifth round had left the audience in disbelief, with Denki Kaminari's cunning victory over Ibra Shiozaki proving that brains could outshine brawn. Now, the sixth round loomed, the massive screen above the battlefield flashing the names. Tenya Ida versus Mei Hatsum. The arena bore the marks of prior clashes, cracked concrete, charred streaks, and scattered debris, each scar a testament to the festival's intensity. Class 1A and 1B sat in their sections, their silence heavy with curiosity, eyes fixed on the ring where a clash of speed and ingenuity was about to unfold. The air buzzed with anticipation, laced with a peculiar energy, as if the arena itself sensed the comedic chaos brewing. Midnight strutted to the center, her WHP slicing the air with a sharp crack, commanding instant attention. Her voice, a sultry blend of authority and mischief, echoed through the stadium as she announced the start of round 6. Tenya Ida from Class 1A, known for his speed, would face Mei Hatsum from Class 1H, a genius from the support course with a flair for invention. She laid down the rules, emphasizing the importance of fighting with passion and flair. In the commentary booth, Present Mike leaned into his microphone, his enthusiasm barely contained as he speculated about the match. Aizawa, slouched beside him, groaned audibly, commenting on the potential chaos of the upcoming battle. On the arena floor, Ida and Mei faced off in their gym uniforms, the fabric catching the stadium's glow. Ida stood rigid, his posture impeccable, glasses gleaming as he adjusted them. His legs hummed faintly, the engines in his calves primed for action, his expression a mask of disciplined resolve. Mei, opposite him, was a whirlwind of energy, her pink dreadlocks bouncing, her goggles reflecting the lights with excitement. Her uniform was barely visible beneath a chaotic array of gadgets, hover saws, wire launchers, a hydraulic arm brace, and something resembling a jetpack strapped to her back. She bounced on her heels, grinning widely, her eyes locked on the VIP section where business tycoons from support companies observed. Mei expressed her enthusiasm, declaring that Ida was the perfect canvas for her inventions and that they would put on a memorable show for the investors. She patted her jetpack, which sputtered comically, emitting a puff of smoke that made her cough. But didn't dampen her spirit. Ida's brow furrowed as he reminded Mei that this was a tournament, not a product showcase, and he intended to compete with honor. He prepared himself, ready to demonstrate his abilities. Mei waved a hand dismissively, already tinkering with a wrist-mounted device. She insisted that together, they could create a marketing dream. Activating her 𝐻𝐵𝐵𝐿, she lifted off the ground slightly and fired a wire from her wrist, snagging a chunk of debris and yanking herself forward with a gleeful shout. She proudly proclaimed that her wire arrows were top-tier and perfect for hero work. The crowd chuckled, caught off guard by Mei's theatrics, while Class 1 as section stirred with silent amusement. Izuku Midoriya, seated among his classmates, couldn't suppress a laugh, his green eyes sparkling as he watched Mei's antics. He thought about how she was just like she had been with him and felt a twinge of sympathy for Ida, who seemed unaware of what he was in for. Class 1B watched with equal interest, 𝗧𝗜𝗧𝗟𝗘 grinning widely, recognizing Mei's chaotic energy from their own encounters with support corps students. Ida, unfazed by the crowd's laughter, charged forward, his engines roaring as he closed the distance in a blur. He declared that her gadgets were impressive, but speed would prevail, aiming a controlled shoulder check to push Mei toward the ring's edge. His movements were precise, a testament to his training, his legs a whirlwind of motion. Mei yelped, her 𝐻𝐵𝐵𝐿 activating and lifting her just out of reach. She laughed, firing another wire that snagged Ida's arm, the line taut as she swung around him like a satellite. She showcased her auto-balancer, which kept her steady no matter how fast he went, landing with a dramatic flourish and striking a pose for the VIPs, urging them to note her versatility. Ida skidded to a halt, his glasses glinting with exasperation. He protested that this was a battle, not a sales pitch, and charged again, his engines flaring blue as he aimed to corner Mei against the boundary. He respected her ingenuity but felt the need to advance. Mei dodged, her wire launcher firing to pull her across the arena, her laughter echoing. She suggested Ida try her hydraulic arm, activating the brace on her arm, which extended with a hiss. She grabbed a piece of rubble and hurled it toward him, not to hit him, but to block his path. She waved at the VIPs, who scribbled notes, their interest piqued. The crowd roared with laughter, Mei's antics turning the match into a spectacle. Izuku covered his mouth, his shoulders shaking as he tried to stifle his chuckles. He thought about how Mei was turning Ida into her personal billboard, feeling a mix of pride and amusement at Ida's serious demeanor. Mick's voice boomed, barely containing his glee. He exclaimed that 𝗏𝗡 was making this a gadget expo, noting that while Ida was running circles, she was stealing the show. Aizawa sighed, rubbing his temples, and remarked that 𝗏𝗡 wasn't fighting to win, she was advertising. Ida was stuck playing her game, and it was throwing him off. Ida, undeterred, adjusted his strategy, his engines revving as he zigzagged to avoid Mei's scattered debris. He acknowledged her remarkable devices but insisted he would not be distracted. He closed in with a burst of speed, aiming to nudge her out of bounds with a precise shove, declaring that this would end now. Mei grinned, her goggles flashing as she activated her jetpack, which roared to life with a comical sputter, lifting her just above Ida's reach. She showcased her aerial maneuver gear, soaring and wobbling slightly, firing a barrage of small, non-lethal pellets from a wrist-mounted launcher, peppering the ground to keep Ida at bay. She called out about their lightweight, accuracy, and market readiness, winking at the VIPs. Ida ducked, his reflexes sharp, but his expression grew strained as he protested that this was highly irregular. He charged again, his speed a blur, but Mei's 𝐻𝐵𝐵𝐿 kept her just out of reach, her laughter ringing out as she swung across the arena on another wire. She landed with a skid and pulled a small device from her belt, a handheld sonic emitter. She excitedly introduced her sonic disruptor, perfect for disorienting villains, activating it to emit a high-pitched whine that made Ida wince, his engines stuttering as he clutched his ears. The crowd gasped, then laughed, Mei's relentless showmanship winning them over. Izuku's laughter broke free, his hand slapping his knee as he watched Ida struggle to maintain his composure. He thought about how Mei was driving him up the wall, recalling how he had felt in similar situations. Sensing an opening, Mei tossed a small gadget toward Ida, a pair of sleek, metallic leg braces that landed at his feet. She urged him to try her velocity enhancers, claiming they would boost his engines by 20% and be perfect for a hero like him. She clasped her hands, her eyes sparkling with hope, imagining the headlines that would follow. Ida hesitated, his 𝐬𝐮𝐴 warring with curiosity. He picked up the braces, admiring their flawless design tailored to his engine quirk. He acknowledged that this was highly unorthodox but found her passion for invention inspiring. He decided to try them on, strapping the braces in place as their mechanisms clicked. His engines roared louder, blue flames flaring brighter. Midnight's WHP cracked, bringing the match to a halt. She called out to Ida, her tone stern yet her eyes twinkling with amusement, asking him to explain his use of equipment tied to his quirk without prior approval. Ida froze, his face flushing as he bowed deeply. He expressed his apologies to Midnight, explaining how he was inspired by 𝐀𝐮𝐭𝐡𝐨𝐫's dedication to her craft. Her enthusiasm for helping heroes stirred his heart, prompting him to act impulsively. He requested permission to use the enhancers, as they aligned with his quirk's function. The crowd murmured, caught between laughter and admiration. May bounced on her toes, clasping her hands, eager for Midnight's approval. She proclaimed that Ida understood the value of her inventions and urged Midnight to grant permission. Midnight's lips curled into a sly smile, her WHP coiling in her hand. She acknowledged Ida's passion, teasing him about his sincerity and granting him permission, but warned him not to make a habit of it. The match resumed. Mick's voice erupted with excitement, barely containing his glee as he announced that Ida was wearing 𝐻𝐮𝐬𝐴 gear, turning the match into a spectacle. Aizawa groaned, expressing his concern that Ida was letting May dictate the pace and needed to refocus. Now equipped with May's braces, Ida charged forward with newfound speed, engines blazing as he closed in on May. He declared that her invention was remarkable but that he needed to secure victory, aiming a swift kick to nudge her toward the boundary. May yelped as her hover saws activated, but Ida's enhanced speed was relentless. She dove and rolled, her jetpack sputtering as she narrowly avoided him. Laughing, she noted that her inventions worked too well and fired a wire to swing away, her movements chaotic yet precise. She waved at the VIPs, who scribbled furiously, their eyes wide with excitement. Ida pursued, engines roaring, but May's gadgets kept her just out of reach. She fired a smoke pellet, filling the arena with a dense cloud that obscured her movements. She called out about her smoke veil, emphasizing its usefulness for stealth operations as she swung through the haze on another wire, landing near the ring's edge. Ida burst through the smoke, determination in his eyes. He shouted for the theatrics to stop as he closed the gap, grabbing May's arm to guide her out of bounds, his movements precise yet gentle. He insisted that the match must conclude. May grinned, twisting free and activating her hydraulic arm, which extended to push Ida back. She declared that it was not yet over and launched a grappling hook, pulling herself across the arena while laughing. She emphasized that her invention was perfect for evading capture, striking another pose as her jetpack coughed out a spark. The crowd roared with laughter, enjoying May's relentless showmanship as the match turned into a comedic spectacle. Izuku doubled over, his laughter ringing out as he watched Ida chase May like a cat after a laser pointer, marveling at her unstoppable nature and Ida's earnest efforts. Undeterred, May pulled out a small drone that buzzed into the air, emitting a blinding flash. She introduced her flash drone, claiming it could distract villains instantly. The light forced Ida to shield his eyes, momentarily faltering in his charge. Seizing the opportunity, May fired another wire, swinging toward the arena center, her jetpack wobbling dangerously. Ida recovered, engines flaring as he pursued her, his voice strained but resolute. He acknowledged her ingenuity but insisted that he needed to end the match. Dodging a stray pellet, he closed in, reaching for May's shoulder and urging her to yield. May laughed, her goggles glinting as she activated her jetpack fully, rocketing upward in a wobbly arc. She declared that she wouldn't yield until the investors saw her full lineup, firing a net from her wrist launcher to entangle Ida's legs. Ida leaped, the net grazing his ankle as he landed with a skid, engines roaring. He protested that this was beyond regulation, though his voice held a hint of admiration. Charging again with overwhelming speed, he finally caught May mid-swing, guiding her gently yet firmly toward the boundary, declaring that the match was over. May's jetpack sputtered out, and she landed just over the line, her laughter undimmed. She acknowledged that she got carried away, striking a final pose for the VIPs and inviting them to call her for production of her inventions. Midnight declared the match concluded, her WHP cracking as she announced that 𝐻𝗏𝗧𝗟𝗘 had crossed the boundary, allowing 𝗀𝐻𝐻𝐸𝐷 to advance to the next round. The stadium erupted, cheers and laughter mingling as 𝐸𝐷 stood, breathing, his glasses askew, the velocity enhancers still humming on his legs. May bounced to her feet, unfazed, and clapped 𝐸𝐷 on the shoulder, praising him for his performance and expressing her excitement about her inventions. 𝐸𝐷 adjusted his glasses, his face flushed but his voice sincere, acknowledging May's passion for invention and admitting he enjoyed the experience. He bowed, drawing another laugh from the crowd. Mick's voice boomed, filled with enthusiasm as he commented on the match, highlighting 𝐸𝐷's composure amidst the chaos of May's gadget showcase. Aizawa leaned back, dryly noting that while 𝐸𝐷 won by staying focused, May achieved her goal of gaining attention, labeling her a marketing menace. The stands of 1A and 1B remained silent, their eyes wide with amusement and respect. Izuku wiped tears from his eyes, his laughter fading to a grin as he watched 𝐸𝐷's flustered exit. He felt a swell of pride for his friend's victory, recognizing May as a force of nature. The crowd's roar filled the arena, the stage set for more battles, each one proving the festival's boundless unpredictability. The WhatIf Sports Festival arena thrummed with a feverish intensity, the crowd's cheers creating a roaring tempest that shook the stands, their fervor a living pulse under the blazing stadium lights. The sixth round had left the audience in stitches, 𝗀𝐻𝐻𝐸𝐷's disciplined victory over 𝐻𝗏𝗧𝗟𝗔's chaotic gadget showcase a comedic highlight that still drew chuckles. Now, the seventh round loomed, the massive screen above the scarred battlefield displaying the names. ●𝗏𝗧𝗟𝗘 versus 𝗧𝗱𝗱 Todoroki. The arena, a patchwork of cracked concrete, charred streaks, and scattered rubble, stood as a testament to the tournament's ferocity, each mark a story of grit and glory. Class 1A and 1B sat in their sections, their silence heavy with anticipation, eyes locked on the ring where a clash of agility and icy precision was about to unfold. The air crackled with tension, as if the stadium itself braced for a storm. Before the match, in a dimly lit corridor beneath the stands, ●𝗱𝗱 Todoroki strode toward the prep area, his heterochromatic eyes fixed ahead, his blue and white gym uniform crisp despite the day's intensity. His expression was a mask of calm resolve, but a flicker of defiance burned in his gaze, a silent rebellion against the weight of his lineage. As he rounded a corner, a towering figure blocked his path. Endeavor, the number 2 hero, his flames flickering ominously, his massive frame casting a shadow that seemed to swallow the light. Endeavor's voice boomed, a low growl laced with authority, urging Shoto to stop rejecting his fire and to embrace his potential as his heir. Shoto stopped, his jaw tightening, frost creeping along his right hand as he firmly declared that he would win the tournament using his ice, proving he didn't need his father's legacy. He asserted his independence, stating that he would not be controlled. Endeavor's flames flared, his eyes narrowing as he warned Shoto of the consequences of spurning his gifts, emphasizing his superiority over his classmates. Shoto's left side sparked briefly, a flicker of fire he quickly suppressed, his voice steady but resolute as he declared that he would overcome the burden of his bloodline and fight for himself. He brushed past Endeavor, leaving Frost in his wake and the number 2 hero seething in frustration. In the arena, Midnight strode to the center, her WHP cracking like a lightning bolt, silencing the crowd's murmurs. Her voice, a commanding presence tinged with excitement, echoed through the stadium as she announced the 7th round, introducing 𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗟𝗘 from Class 1A, known for his agility and tape, against Shoto Todoroki, the ice-wielding prodigy. She outlined the rules, emphasizing the importance of valor and vigor in their fight. In the commentary booth, Present Mike leaned into his microphone, his voice vibrant as he anticipated the match. He highlighted 𝗏𝗏𝗟𝗘's mobility and Todoroki's ice as key factors in the upcoming battle. Aizawa, slouched beside him, sighed heavily, reminding Mike of the need for restraint in his commentary while analyzing the strengths of both competitors. The stage was set for an exhilarating clash. On the arena floor, 𝐬𝗏 and Todoroki faced off, their blue and white gym uniforms catching the stadium's glow. 𝐬𝗏's lanky frame was relaxed, his grin wide but his dark eyes sharp with focus, his elbows primed to unleash his tape quirk. Todoroki stood opposite, his posture rigid, his right side already frosting, his expression a cold mask of determination, his left side dormant, a silent vow to his rebellion. 𝐬𝗏 called out to Todoroki, his voice light but edged with confidence, hands flexing as he prepared for action. He unleashed a stream of tape from his elbow, aiming to bind Todoroki's arm and pull him off balance. Todoroki didn't flinch, his right hand sweeping,